It being 6 o'clock, I'm calling to order the Select Board meeting of May 12th, 2025. If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting is being telecast live by Chelmsford Telemedia and being recorded for later viewing by the public. We do have an empty seat here. We have Pat Maloney. Is Pat on Zoom?
Yes, he's on Zoom.
We have Pat Maloney, on one of the Select Board members on Zoom. Let's see. First on the agenda, we have public service announcements. Pat, would you like to do those?
I will, thank you. Okay, so tonight, reading from the Chelmsford Health Department monthly newsletter, several things going on this month. First is Hoarding 101, and the date for that is May 20th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. at the Chelmsford Public Library. Join them for an informative session on hoarding. The class is designed for community members, family, and friends who want to learn more about hoarding behaviors, their impact, and how to offer support. So you need to register for that, but that's the date for that. There's a walking group been established, May 13th and 27th. Time is 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. at the 110 baseball field. Join them as they walk on the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. It's a great way to get in your 30 minutes of exercise, socialize, and learn about some interesting health topics. Please wear comfortable and weather-appropriate clothes and bring water. All ages and fitness levels are welcome. The next thing on their newsletter is Community CPR on May 21st from 9 to 1 p.m. Chelmsford Town Hall. Join them for a comprehensive 4-hour training session where you'll master CPR techniques for adults, children, and infants. You'll also learn how to respond to choking emergencies, understand AED basics, and cover essential first aid procedures. Every participant will receive the American Heart Association's Heart Saver CPR AED First Aid Certificate, valid for 2 years. Don't miss this opportunity to gain life-saving skills. The cost of the class is $20, and you need to register with the health department. The next item with the health department is opioid overdose and Narcan training on May 23rd from 12 p.m. to 12:30 p.m. at Chelmsford Town Hall. Learn how to recognize and respond to an overdose. This class is appropriate for all ages. Every participant receives an opioid rescue kit that includes Narcan. Sober karaoke is the next item on May 9th from 7 to 10 p.m. at the Chelmsford Center for the Arts. Join them for some sober, free fun. There is blood pressure screenings on May 1st, which is gone by, so I won't spend any time on that. And then on May 29th, there is blood pressure screenings from 8:30 to 10:30 at the Chelmsford Senior Center. Drop by the health department office located in Chelmsford Town Hall for a free blood pressure screening, registration not required. Massachusetts Behavioral Health Line, free confidential service available 24/7, 365 days a year. It connects individuals and families to mental health and substance use treatment services across Massachusetts. You can call or text 833-733-2445 or chat online with masshelpline.com. This year's Memorial Day observance in the town of Chelmsford. Chelmsford will observe Memorial Day on Monday, May 26th in the Chelmsford Town Center. The Merrimack Valley Vietnam veterans will host the Veterans Organization this year. The parade will end on the Town Center Common, followed by a short Memorial Day program. The parade route will start at 10 a.m. from the parking lot next to CVS Max and Leo's on Route 4. They will proceed to the lights at the intersection of Route 129 and continue by the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, taking a left onto Academy Street and then onto the backside of the Common. It's a wonderful opportunity for Scouts and other civics groups to join them. Everyone is welcome. All veterans are invited to march with the MVVV. If you have any questions about this parade, please call the Veterans Office at 978-250-5238. Chelmsford Police Department are looking to recognize National Police Week and Law Enforcement Officer Memorial Day. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed into law the designation of May 15th each year as National Peace Officer Memorial Day and the calendar week in which the day falls as National Police Week. This week pays tribute to the local, state, and federal peace officers who have died or who have been disabled in the line of duty. We also take this time to remember Chelmsford-owned Donald Adams, who was killed in the line of duty in 1927. Constable Adams was 27 years old when he went on a trolley to arrest a suspect and was shot and killed. Constable Donald Adams' bravery in going after an armed suspect will not be forgotten. In observance of National Police Week, the Chelmsford Police Department will hold a law enforcement memorial ceremony at Forefathers Cemetery on Thursday, May 15th, this Thursday, at 11 o'clock. During the ceremony, a wreath will be laid at the gravesite of Constable Adams to honor those officers who have made the ultimate sacrifice. After the ceremony, we will also be placing wreaths at the Pine Ridge Cemetery and Fairview Cemetery for 3 officers that passed away of various serious medicals while on duty. Those 3 are Police Chief Ralph Huslander, died of a heart attack while on duty in his cruiser on March 24th, 1967. Patrolman Wilson P. George died on May 25th, 1960, on duty of a heart attack. And Patrol Officer John Campbell died on February 8, 1978, on duty of a heart attack. Police Chief Colin Spence and the Chelmsford Police Department cordially invite members of the public to attend this important event. Moving on, the Chelmsford Market on the Common starts soon. Artisan and Farmers Market, this is announcing the 2025 season. This is be every Saturday, May 31st to October 11th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. For locally grown and artisan crafts. Again, that's Market on the Common, starting May 31st to October 11th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. And our final announcement is in memory of firefighter Richard St. Onge. Westford remembers, and Chelmsford and Westford firefighters invite you to join them for a special dedication ceremony honoring firefighter Richard St. Onge, whose courage and devotion to service embody the spirit of brotherhood and sacrifice. Firefighters from Chelmsford and Westford will unveil a new permanent memorial sculpture in his honor. Together, they'll share the memories, reflect on his life, and stand united as one community to honor his legacy. That will be on June 1st, 2025 at 10 a.m. at the Chelmsford Community Garden at Sunny Meadow Farm. That's at 168 Robin Hill Road in Chelmsford. And that is it for public announcements this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Next up, we have general public input. We do have a public hearing later on the agenda tonight for an all-alcoholic beverage package store license. So if anyone has input on that, I'd ask that they wait until that time. But if there is anyone from the public who would like to provide input at this time.
There's nobody on Zoom.
Nobody on Zoom. Okay, thank you. And could you just state your name? And also, I just want to remind everybody that we do want to limit some of this. I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes a speaker. And the total session, it looks like we do have some people here for general input. So I'd like to go no longer than a half an hour, possibly, if that's okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Dave Brown. I live at 37 Freeman Road. And I'm here to provide some input on some new traffic infrastructure, stuff I can see from my house. This past week, there were 4 speed humps that were installed on Mill Road. This is a very important road for the town. It's a through road, connects my neighborhood to downtown, and it's having a big impact on the traffic there. I think it's a negative impact. It's part of infrastructure that's going to allow a crosswalk to be built. That crosswalk is also an important piece of infrastructure. I think that's really going to be a positive benefit, but you got to weigh between the impact on the road and the impact of the crosswalk. This was approved by this body on December 2023, and I think the real problem here is that the traffic and analysis study that informed you guys was inadequate. I've talked to my neighbors, say did you guys know this was coming in? And I haven't found someone yet that knew it was going to be installed. So I think there was a lack of neighborhood input. And that's a real shame because the traffic engineer did not consider options to reduce the impact of the traffic from a big picture way. I looked at the three options that were proposed. They were very much in the same vein. This is how we do crosswalks. I think this road is important enough that the alternative should have considered things like stop signs with a flashing red light or a full stoplight. This is a very challenging spot to put a crosswalk, as you can imagine. That's why there's 4 speed humps over like a 200-foot distance, very long distance. Or even something as simple as having the speed humps only go over half the road. So right now it's 4 speed humps, so you go over 2 before you hit the crosswalk, and then you go over 2 after you've already gone past the crosswalk. I don't think there's any reason why they need to be across the full road. And so if you did that, there'd be less impact on the road, and you'd still have a very safe crosswalk, which we do want. So I think this has been a mistake, and it's going to be something we want to revisit with a study in the future to look at the use of the crosswalk, when it gets used, how frequently, how much car traffic goes by, to address it and maybe fix it with something that's going to balance those needs a little bit better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sarah Maggio, 3 Gertie Drive. I'm here to express my concern regarding the recent pedestrian safety measures implemented near Murphy Field, like this gentleman just spoke about, particularly in contrast to the limited attention given to the South Row school zone on Mill Road. While I appreciate the efforts made to improve the safety at Murphy Field, including the addition of a crosswalk, 16 signs, 4 speed bumps, I find it troubling that similar efforts have not been made in the school zone on Mill Road, a route traveled daily by children and families walking to and from school. I first brought up this issue in September 2023 after I experienced firsthand how dangerous it is to walk to school with my young children who attend South Row. I requested a crossing guard, or at the very least a blinking radar sign, to slow traffic. A traffic study was completed in 2023 by the Chelmsford Police Department. It showed that cars traveling along Mill Road speed, some in excess of 45 miles per hour. In the school zone, the speed limit is 20. I was dismissively told that it is not unlike any other road in Chelmsford, and that there are only blinking lights on the Boston Road side of the school because it's the school's frontage, even though the school forces 100% of the cars to enter the school from Mill Road for drop-off and pickup. Apart from a few added words to an existing sign, there appears to have been little done to improve the safety and visibility of this critical area. The disparity in traffic calming measures is difficult to overlook, especially considering the high vulnerability of children in the school zone. It's imperative that we take stronger action to ensure the safety of all students and families who rely on Mill Road as a primary walking route to school. I urge you, the Select Board, to review the current safety infrastructure on Mill Road and consider implementing additional measures such as enhanced signage, flashing school zone beacons, clearly marked crosswalks, and speed bumps or raised crossings as they were just done at Murphy Field. The safety of our children should be a top priority, and we must act before a preventable accident occurs. I'm also concerned that the speed bumps were approved in December 2023 when I first brought up the issue of the Mill Road school zone for South Row in September 2023. So it was a known issue before those speed bumps and crosswalks were implemented. So I'm just concerned why nothing has been done in the school zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for general input? Okay. Next up, we have committee vacancies.
Okay, for committee vacancies as of April 14th, 2025, Agricultural Commission has one expired 3-year term ending on June 30th, 2026. Commission on Disabilities has one unexpired 3-year term ending on June 30, 2025, one unexpired 3-year term ending on June 30, 2026, and 2 3-year terms ending on June 30, 2027. Council on Aging Board has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30th, 2025. Conservation Commission has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30, 2025. Historic District Commission alternate member are looking for one 3-year term ending June 30, 2027. Holiday Decorating Committee has two unexpired 1-year terms ending 12/31/25. And Parade Committee has all applicants welcome 1-year terms ending July 31st, 2025. And the Recycling Committee has one unexpired 3-year term ending June 30, 2026. If you're interested in serving on a town board or committee, please complete an online application available on the town website. For more information, please contact the town manager's office at 978-250-5202 or TM office at chelmsfordmass.gov.
Thank you, Pat. Okay, next up on the agenda, we do have a public hearing. It's for a change of officers, directors, transfer of stock, liquor license manager, and DBA on the all alcoholic beverage package store license for In-N-Out Variety Inc., DBA Chelmsford Discount Liquors at 11 Vinyl Square. I think that we do have to read. We do have to read the. Do we have to read into the record the?
Hearing notice?
Yes.
See if I can pull it up.
Is that right?
Yep.
Does it matter if I do it?
You can do it.
Okay. This is the letter from James Garrity, right? Notice is hereby given that the Select Board will conduct a public hearing on the application for a change of officers, director, transfer of stock, liquor license manager, and DBA on the all discount liquors to be exercised on the premises at 11 Vinyl Square. This hearing will take place at 6 p.m. on Monday, May 12th, 2025 at the town offices, 50 Billerica Road, room 204. It is required that the applicant or a representative attend this meeting. You may participate in person or virtually via Zoom. The Zoom link can be found below. Advertisement of this public hearing will appear in the Lowell Sun on May 1st, 2025. And for questions, you can contact the town managers. Or I guess I should read the whole thing. If you have any questions, please contact me, 978-244-3302, or jgarrity@chelmsfordma.gov.
And they're on the Zoom.
Okay. Hi, and do we have a representative here to talk about this change?
If it pleases the board.
Hi. Yes, please. Hello.
Hi. My name is Arthur Perlman. My office is located in Sudbury, Massachusetts. I represent In-N-Out Variety Inc. It's a Massachusetts corporation. It is seeking to transfer the stock interest of the corporation from Dev Kambadi, who was a 25% owner, Krupal Soni, who was a 50% owner, and Chandni Patel, who was a 25% owner, to Vijay Kumar Patel, who will now be 100% owner. Is also seeking to change the officers and directors of the corporation from Dev Kambadi as president and director, Krupal Soni as treasurer, secretary, and director, and Chandni Patel as director, to Vijay Kumar Patel as the president, treasurer, secretary, and Dashrathbhai Patel, who will be the director. In addition, it's seeking a change of manager of the liquor license from Amy Soni to Vijay Patel. Lastly, it's seeking a change of the DBA from Liquor Market of Chelmsford to Chelmsford Discount Liquors. The corporation holds an all alcoholic beverages package store license. Therefore, this transfer of stock interest, change of officers, directors, and a change of DBA of the corporation, as well as a change of manager on the liquor license must be approved by the town of Chelmsford and the ABCC. Mailed notice to abutters is not required for this type of change, and you've already read in the legal notice that was published in the newspaper. Vijay Patel is currently living at 305 Newton Street in Fall River and is working at O'Brien's Liquor in Dorchester, which holds an all alcohol liquor license, package store liquor license. The current operating hours of the business will be maintained. The layout of the store will be maintained. Nothing regarding the operation of the business is changing. This is all about ownership, a change of manager on the liquor license, and a change of the DBA. The owner is familiar with the laws relative to the sale of alcohol. He will continue to uphold the statutory law as well as any rules or regulations that are particular to the town of Chelmsford regarding the sale of alcohol. I would respectfully request that you approve the transfer of the stock interest, the change of officer and director, and the change of DBA of the corporation, as well as the change of manager on the liquor license. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so does anyone in the select board have any questions or concerns?
Yeah, I just have a couple questions about, I guess you could call it inconsistencies. You have a certificate of good standing tax compliance, which shows the address of In-N-Out Variety at 11 Vinyl Square. And then you have a certificate of compliance from the Department of Unemployment Assistance, which shows the address of In-N-Out Variety at 9 Nabnasset Drive. Just questioning why those addresses are not the same.
The second one went to the address that's on the corporation as the person who gets notices in the corporate papers. That's where the person who receives notices gets it. So instead of putting it down for the address of the store, they put it down for his address.
Okay,
But it's for the corporation. It's not, it doesn't matter what the address is. It doesn't have to be the address of the store. It's just the corporation is in good standing, and it is.
okay, all right. Also, on the statement of change of supplemental information from the corporation's division, at the bottom of, unfortunately, we don't have page numbers on these. I don't know if you can bring that up, Paul. It's the top of it says Corporations Division Statement of Change of Supplemental Information. And at the bottom it says type of business in which the corporation intends to engage. And it says convenience store with lotto. I guess I'm a little confused about that because this is a package store. I wonder why it says convenience store with lotto and doesn't mention the package store sales at all.
That should be changed. I think way back when they were first starting, they weren't sure of the business that was going to be run, how it's going to be a convenience store with alcohol, and then they made it into an alcohol store. So that should be changed, and I will change it. I'll file a change with the Secretary of State.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Was that the one, was that Article 8? Under Article 8, is that where you saw that?
Right there on the screen, it's under the statement of change of
It's
supplemental
under
information.
3 at the bottom.
Right there.
It also indicates convenience store under Article 8.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's another spot.
Yeah, that's how they started when they were first putting it together. They formed the corporation, and then they switched what they were doing.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? Okay, and if anybody from the public has any input regarding this? Anyone on Zoom, Paul?
Nope.
No. Okay. Okay, so if nobody has anything else, I would take a motion to
Close the public
close the
hearing.
public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Okay, and we'll take a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Second?
Oh, I need a second. Yes, please.
Treasurer, Secretary? I'll second the motion.
Okay, thank you. Pat Wojcik
Yes.
and Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff, Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm an aye, so the public meeting is closed. The public hearing is closed. So I guess we have to vote on this to approve it, right? Okay, so if nobody has any other concerns, anybody else on the board? No? I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion for a change of officer directors, transfer of stock, liquor license manager, and DBA on the all alcoholic beverages package store license for In-N-Out Variety, Inc., DBA Chelmsford Discount Liquors to be exercised on the premises at 11 Vinyl Square.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Okay, and again, we'll do a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
And Jeff?
Aye.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye, so the motion passes with 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have another license. We have a license for additional outdoor seating on the malt beverages farmer series pouring permit for Navigation Brewing Company, Inc. at 15 Central Square. And we have somebody here for that. Hi. Hi.
PJ Mercia, 6 Pilgrim Circle, Tingsboro, representing Navigation Brewing Company. And we are looking to add some seating out back in the courtyard area, and then a couple of seats up front along the sidewalk.
Nice. Okay.
So is there going to be any table service on any of these outside?
All table service, indoors and outdoors.
Oh.
Yeah, we switched that over. We that was a request for the police chief. So
Okay.
we implemented all over, so inside as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so obviously now you have more than one person working at a time.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's usually 2 people to 3 people on shift, so.
Okay.
Yep.
I guess I have one question about the way it shows the tables out front.
Yep.
Paul, is that kind of how they're supposed to be?
It has to be restricted, which is why you see the barriers.
Right.
That's the requirement by the ABCC in terms of controlling the use of alcohol in a public location. Very similar, you would see at Max and Leo's or that type of establishment.
Okay, but with still people that are coming in and going out have to go kind of between those two
Yeah,
tables.
there's plenty of room there. It's going to be up front's a really small area. It's going to be 2 tables on either side of the doors, with 2 chairs on them at all times. There's not going to be moving chairs around or anything like that. So it's a small area. The property line is about halfway of that half point of that sidewalk. So we obviously can't go onto the public sidewalk. So we're going to restrict that in there.
Okay.
What are you going to put out back?
We're gonna have, we have, there's sort of like round picnic tables currently, but we're working on putting like Adirondack chairs out there, and then we have to have one of those tables will be handicap accessible. So there's plans to. It's currently all pavement, but the property owner is actually going to be converting that area into like a courtyard. So there'll be obviously walkways to the 2 doors, and then I believe like a mulch type gravel or grass areas around that, making a little bit more of a green space. But that's not going to happen until about July. So
Okay.
So I know you're licensed for 130 seats, so this will, the 130 includes this?
we're not asking to increase the capacity at all. So
Okay.
yeah, so so if we have, let's say 100 people inside, then we can only have 30 people outside. But we don't anticipate putting that many chairs out there. So we're probably gonna get enough to seat about 20 people outside, and that's including the front too, with that number.
Okay, so so do you ever have 130 people inside now?
We've only had that once,
Okay.
so yeah.
So I guess the question is then, in the wintertime, will you bring these in and then move that seat?
Oh yeah, yeah, yes. That'll be those chairs will be as soon as the snow falls. We'll bring all those things inside, but and then obviously put up signs that there's no alcohol beyond here. Once you get inside, we'll be having like movable signs for that.
Okay. So is that allowable now too, that they can change the layout of the numbers? Okay,
Yeah,
without
and-
coming back to us
Without
every
coming
time?
back, right,
Okay.
exactly. Seasonal.
That's what I
seating.
thought, yeah. Okay, thanks. All right. So the
Well,
questions I have.
excuse me, I can say I'm lucky enough. I have family up in Amesbury, so I occasionally go up to Amesbury and Newburyport to meet them for lunch. And many of the places up there have a out front area just like that, and it's just it's simply fenced off.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that way you can't just get up and walk out with a beer. I mean,
Yeah, it sort of just keeps honest people honest. That's really
keeps
all
the
it does.
dogs where they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a nice, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Okay, if nobody has anything else, I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the application for additional outdoor seating on the malt beverage farmer series pouring permit for Navigation Brewing Company, Inc., being exercised on the premises of 15 Central Square.
Second.
Okay, and another roll call vote. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Aaron? Yes. And I'm an aye. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Next up, we have reports and presentations.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Padre Utilitarian is tending to be here, and I think, has he arrived yet? Oh, there he is. Okay, I just want to make sure we didn't start without him. Okay, I was going to ask. Okay, all right, you're good. All right, I was looking for you. Okay. All right, great. That's the first one, is the Chelmsford Choice. The aggregation contract is up in November for the town's electricity aggregation. So first, we have a presentation from our consultant, Peregrine Energy Group, who is joining us online, and then we'll hear from Badri and the Clean Energy folks.
Okay, great.
Okay.
We're actually here in
Oh, you're here in
Oh.
person. Okay. You said you were coming online.
I'm sorry, yeah, well, we just couldn't stay away. It's such
Hello.
a beautiful night here in Chelmsford. so
Welcome.
Thanks for coming out.
Thank you, Paul. So good to see you. So I'll just charge ahead if that's okay with the board. So my name is Paul Gromer. I'm with the company of Peregrine Energy Group. I'm joined by my colleague Compare. As Paul said, we're the consultants for the town's electricity aggregation program, which is called Chelmsford Choice. What I'm going to do tonight is just provide a little background on the program, results to date, but the main reason we're here is that it's time for the town to enter into a new electricity supply contract for the program, and I'll discuss that briefly and then tee up an issue that the board discussed the last time that you went through this process. So as background, as I said, it's municipal electricity, which is really group buying for electricity, and it's become very popular in Massachusetts. Over 200 cities and towns have programs like this, including the big cities like Boston and Worcester, but also the majority of towns as well. To give you a little history on the program, Chelmsford is one of the first communities to do this. Town meeting authorized it back in 2014. The program was approved by the state in 2015, and it launched in February 2016 and has operated continuously since. The benefits are stable electricity prices, some electricity options for folks, and also savings. The Chelmsford program has saved about $28 million to date compared to the price of National Grid basic service. And the next slide illustrates that. So what we see there is the National Grid basic service price in blue and the program price in red. And you can see that the National Grid price, number one, changes every 6 months. Number two, can be quite high sometimes, and that the program price is stable, much more stable, and has been consistently below the National Grid price. This is actually a particularly good graph. Most communities beat the National Grid price on average, but they don't beat it every single month, which Chelmsford has almost done. So your results have been particularly good in this program. About 70% of the accounts in town are in the program, and most of them are on the basic product, and I'll talk about the differences in the product in a second. So, as I said, the reason I'm here is it's time to enter a new electricity supply contract. You've had 4 of these contracts since the program began. This is a contract between the town and an electricity supplier to provide the electricity for the program. Importantly, it's a no-cost contract for the town. It just sets out the responsibilities of the electricity supplier. There's no cost to the town for it. Current program runs through November. You need to have a new program contract in place by mid-August to keep the program going. And a critical decision to make as part of the contract, and what the board discussed last time, was the composition of the program options. So if we go to the next one here, so these are the options as the program works today. You have 3 options. You have a basic, which only includes the minimum amount of renewable electricity required by the state, and it's the lowest price. And then there are 2 green options, green or greenest, with more electricity for a higher price. And the critical thing is which of these is the default? Which do customers get unless they choose one of the others? The way your program works and the way many programs work, the default is the least expensive one, and customers can choose to pay more for greener electricity if they want. Other towns make the greener, the default option, the middle one, and customers can either pay less or pay more from that. So to give you a sense, so you can think about this with some prices, we got some what are called indicative prices for what your prices might look like on the bid day. These aren't binding bids, but it's a sense of where the market is. So we have prices here for each of the three products, assuming they're designed the way they are now. Different prices according to the term of the contract. So that's one decision the town will make. Do you want 12 months, 24 months, 36? And then down in the lower left, we have the cost, the prices for National Grid Basic Service. Both today, 14.6 cents. What we think it's going to be for the next period, which will be announced in about a month, and that's the period starting in January. So this is what prices look like now. The only caveat I'll offer is that the electricity market has been really, really volatile lately. Electricity prices are affected in part by expectations about the economy, as people have worried and there's going to be a recession, there isn't going to be a recession, that causes prices to go up and down. Electricity prices are a little like the stock market in that way, not quite as dramatic as the stock market, but similar kinds of effects. So if we go now, the last slide, I think this would be the critical one, is we looked at what prices might be at different levels of renewables for your basic option and what the incremental cost of that renewable energy would be if you decide to have it. So the columns are for different percentages of extra renewable energy, and then the rows show here's the basic price for all required electricity, all required renewables, and then if you want extra renewables, that gets added on, and that's the green row across. And then we show a total price, and then we show the incremental cost of the extra renewable energy for a monthly basis for an average customer. So that's a lot to go through quickly, but it shows you what the incremental cost would be if you wanted to put extra renewable energy in the basic at different percentages which you could choose, and to think about whether you want to do that or whether you want to keep the program the way it is now, where the basic is just the lowest price you can offer, or the default is the lowest price you can offer, and then people could choose more renewables if they want it. So that's the end of my slides. That was a lot fast, so I'd be happy to answer questions or sit down, whichever you'd prefer.
Yeah, how is this going to affect the solar takers in town?
Great question. Not one bit. So anybody who has solar panels, they get credits for that, or they participate in community solar, they get credits on the bill. That continues to work in exactly the same way it does, and it isn't affected by these programs
Great,
at all.
thank you.
Does anyone else have anything?
We hear from the committee, and then. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hi, Badri. Welcome.
Hi. Badri Upayappan, Chair for Clean Energy and Sustainability Committee. If you want to, I assume you have all seen the slide deck. It's available for the public. Essentially, we've done our models for, on a continuous basis, we've done our models for clean energy and the greenhouse gas emissions, essentially, and the impact. One of the key elements in this whole action for reaching net zero, which the town voted for, and the select board appointed the committee to make recommendations from time to time and take policy actions. I think the summary line is somewhere around the 40% to 50% green energy, which would be about anywhere between 10 to 20% higher than what the next period will show up, is our general recommendation, depending on where the pricing comes in, essentially, as a whole piece. If you sort of just go to the next slide, we'll give some background on here. Essentially, you'll see that, this is our charter goal. Without clean electricity, increasing component of the supply we'll never reach the goal. In fact, nowhere, and nobody's going to reach that without a larger component of clean energy coming on board, basically. And that's one of the reasons why Massachusetts is leading the charge in many, many projects, both offshore wind as well as on onshore solar, on ground solar as such. Next slide, please. So this continues. This is our greenhouse gas inventory on a per person per capita basis. We have a long, long way to go. Net zero essentially means the number has to be zero. Whether we reach net zero in 2050 is a challenging question, but rather than wait until 2050 to find out whether we can reach, we are on a journey to try and continuously reduce. So this is the Chelmsford's responsibility. This basically reflects a 6% reduction of emissions in 5 years, which much of it happens to be the fact that it is green electricity that has actually contributed to it. It's not just as if people have suddenly stopped using fossil fuels. It's actually the fact that the increasing supply of the electricity has been going from, in the past 5 years, from about 20% to 26% now, I think. As that 6% of increase in electricity is literally sort of correlated to this whole thing. So if you go to the next slide, essentially we have to be reducing our greenhouse gas by 5% every year, which is still a very challenging task. So I won't outline, I will outline if needed the rest of the other big policy or other initiatives we have. But in our opinion, this policy level driver of Chelmsford Choice is a foundationally good value way to deliver clean energy as well as to improve the net zero coefficient or to address and move forward with that. It is one of the foundational changes that we can make as the economy and the technology improves for electrification, right? I understand there's in the community a lot of fear about supply capability, distribution capability, and choice of where the electricity and energy comes in, basically. But we can have a chat about that if needed. Next slide, please. As Peregrine has, next slide would be, yeah, thanks. Currently, we're about 27%. That's our default option. As has been mentioned by Peregrine, the big decision that we have to take is where we situate our default option, where people will be signed up for. But at no point are we taking away the opt-out option. If somebody wants to downgrade themselves or upgrade themselves, they are able to do that at their own choice at any time. So there is no particular contract on that. They're able to do so. If you go to the next slide, this is a sort of a comparison of different towns, a sample from within what was shown, basically neighboring towns, give or take. And some outside, and they all show what the different percentage points are. We are the default of 24% to 27% at this point through this November, and other towns have either adopted much more at plus 30 or 40% or about 20% essentially. So we show the various. All of these towns have their own cycles of aggregation and acquisition, so their costs are obviously different than ours. But in a sense, many of them have defaults that are in the greener option bucket, right? So that's the key thing to understand. Next slide, please, Paul, thank you. What we recommend in general is to look in the greener option, basically design a program in the greener option. We didn't want to go and take it up to 69% or 67% type of thing. We wanted to choose a midpoint that was comfortable in terms of cost and the performance of where it needed to be over time. So we think somewhere in the range of 40 to 50%, maybe 55% of, depending on what the actual pricing comes about, we can sustain that level of green option as a default and let most of them select. And as has been shown in a prior slide by Peregrine, the cost would be about $5 to $7 for an average homeowner, so to speak. If you go to the next slide, I think this slide set is very similar to what Peregrine has shown, so you have all of that essentially. So bottom line, I think from our committee recommendation would be select vote favorably to allow for a default option to be the greener option, the central option, and we will work with the town's sustainability manager, Chris Haley, Paul, and Peregrine to figure out where that particular 40%, total 40% to 50% green electricity is, to ensure that we don't, we're not putting everybody at $30 or $40 a month extra kind of a thing. We actually have a chart that we may not have attached to it, but I'm happy to send it across to select board members if need. But we modeled for annual consumption between 4,000 kilowatt hours to 10,000 kilowatt hours per household across the board and across multiple plus points. Even at about, with the indicative pricing, roughly about 15 point, I'll refer it verbally here and get you some numbers, but roughly at about 57% total green component, which may be in the 14.7, 14.9 type of range, give or take. A household using about 8,000 kilowatt hours would only pay an addition of about $8 per month, right? And that's 8,000 kilowatt hours, which is massive. That as you're running probably a 3,000 square foot home, air conditioning full, and comfortable 72, whatever that number is, over the whole year plus kind of a thing. That's my own home runs at about 4,500 kilowatt hours, give or take. I do have the benefit of solar, so I do. But as a pitch, if anybody's listening, put solar on your roof if you can. It's greatly useful, very, very useful if you have a solar-facing thing. But our recommendation would be to look at that band, essentially in the 40 to 50 range. If the pricing suggests we can move a little bit up based on the pricing, we will make that decision. But really, most importantly, when it does come for it, we recommend that select board take a look at it and say that the option is midpoint, which is greener option as the default. Why are we asking that? That's a very important question, right? You saw these statistics about where the distribution that Peregrine showed. I think about 11,000 accounts were about in the default. It was in the previous Peregrine slides, I think. About maybe one or two slides before. There were about 11,000 plus accounts and very few in the greener and greenest option. We've had this conversation. Most people, it's not our intent to, what shall we say, surprise them, but our intent is to sign them up to the midpoint, which is a cost-effective plus point, and communicate the change and the opt-out methods if they find it very difficult to pay for that. What it is suggested is that most people sign up and they find that it's useful, it's easy. Rather than 11,000 people signing up, maybe there are 500, maybe there are 1,000 who can come down much more easier. And they'll find that the difference, when explained properly, will be like, okay, this is $5 to $7 extra per month. And we understand that if people are in fixed income, that may also be a challenge. $5 looks like small, but could be a challenge for some people. But obviously for those, I'm assuming that those are in different rate categories and stuff if it is absolutely necessary. So that's why we are looking at the extra cost on the supply side is about $5 to $8, give or take, as a modeled number, essentially. So this will help us move the needle, keep us slightly ahead, buy us time as the other initiatives come forward, whether it be in fact, about a week and a half ago, I had an opportunity to talk to Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll, and I advocated, as we received Chelmsford's Climate Leader Award, which I don't know if you guys happen to see the certificate, basically. But I spoke to her, and she was very supportive of the fact that we need to revitalize Solarize Massachusetts, because that happens to be the biggest driver that we can do to help ourselves to produce more distributed and capable energy set that is available almost on every rooftop. As I said, the sun is free, to largely free. Not, when the weather changes or the cloudy patterns happen. But that's the recommendation. Please vote for the mid option. We'll work with the sustainability manager to design something in the 40 to 50%, or if the prices are looking good, we'll look at a 52, 53 type percent. Because what we're looking at is when we end this program in 3 years, it will be 31% as the number, and we want to stay slightly ahead of the curve. That's all, right? So we'll design it in that. Even at 50%, it's still 19% ahead of the game, which we'll look at it with Peregrine to come back with. So that's the recommendation. Any questions, please do.
Does anyone have questions?
So let me understand what you said. You said that if you go to the 50%, you would expect that the rate would be 14.7 to 14.9, which is
Based on the indicative, basically.
which is basically less than what the basic is right now.
Correct, it is.
So it might even be a
It is.
wash. as far as-
It is. It's a wash in that sense. Absolutely, right? So it's a good point. But obviously, now if that is the change, most of these providers, and Peregrine probably knows the market better than I do, but most of these providers provide a slightly lower number than what they expect the future rates are, to the extent. Now, of course, we are entering into a very turbulent economic time where economic demand could fall, and natural gas could be priced very cheaply, and Massachusetts relies on that. But what we are doing is off-taking new technology, solar technology or wind technology, which is new, that is required long-term, and the community is providing support to that through the net metering principles. But essentially, yes.
And if we were to make the greener as a default, it stands to reason that would be a bigger volume, obviously, for whoever's providing it. Is that going to potentially lower that price because of the additional volume?
Well, that would be the question.
That would be a Peregrine question to answer,
Okay.
right?
You gotta go up to the mic, otherwise people at home can't hear.
Well, yeah, and I was wondering what the discrepancy is between the different towns and if that's due to the volume.
Also depends when they bid.
It's also a
Okay,
timing,
or,
it's a
yeah, or
timing issue
longevity.
also.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's exactly correct. So the differences in the towns, prices is more than anything else, it's just based on the time they went out to bid because the market moves up and down. So that's the big factor there. To your question about whether if the greener were the default, the incremental cost of the renewable energy would be lower, you would think so, but unfortunately not. So the price of renewable energy is kind of locked in the incremental cost is sort of locked in regardless of the volume. So it would be, the ratios would be the same as we showed on the slides there.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
mean, I still think it behooves us to go up to the greener option as a default. As Badri has mentioned, anybody who does find it challenging to pay that would have the option to go down to the basic, or whatever you call that,
Standard.
The standard option.
the standard option.
When do we have this in front of us to actually vote? Not
What's that?
today. We're not voting on this
You can
today.
vote tonight, you can vote next week, but we
Oh,
have
we
to vote,
can.
we have to get this out to bid by midsummer.
By midsummer.
I did have a question myself too, because when we did talk to Chris Haley, and Peregrine can answer this question to us, and maybe Chris had. We were told that we don't have to decide right now which is the default before we bid. And I'm not sure if that's the case, because sometimes, that's revealing our choice. I want to know the price before I decide what it is, right? But maybe public procurement processes require us to declare that, so I don't know that answer, and if you can shed light, that would be great.
Yes, so you don't need to decide in advance of getting the bids, but you would need to decide as part of accepting a bid. So you can wait to see just to your point exactly, you want to see the prices you could wait to see the prices before you make the decision, but then you have to make the decision right then. That day, you can't wait, and decide a week or two later.
Because the prices could change in the next
They
week.
only hold
yeah.
the price for a couple
Yeah.
hours because of the market. You're in a fluid
So,
market.
the select board would have to take a decision independent of the bid when you go out and get the bid, but the two shall have to come and marry at the point of the day the bid is received in 2 hours. Paul will basically say, I think, to the chair and say, we're doing this and we're doing this. But we will inform and make sure that the matrix is available, and we'll figure out what that percentage point looks like a bit.
And when would we expect to see the bids?
Well, as he noted, we have to bid it by August, mid-August, to enter into a new contract. The question becomes, when do we want to time the market? And that's a judgment call, right? You could think way things are going so crazy. You could think today's the best time, or you could think, well, maybe there'll be the economic indicators in July we'll have the second quarter GDP, and maybe it'll be going the other way, and therefore, if there's concerns about the economy, then that might be a better time to bid. That's like playing the stock market. So you got to make that call, and in fact, we're currently doing that with our town gas supply. Our gas supply contract expires June 30th, end of next month. We're still waiting because, as you know, the market's very volatile right now. So again, it becomes a judgment call. You look great in hindsight, but at the time you got to make the call, or you could look real poorly in hindsight. But as noted, we have to have a new contract by mid-August in order to effectuate the notices and so forth. So basically, what the board has to decide is what direction are we going. This is the fourth time we've always gone with the low price contract and allowed people to go up, as you noted, and you can see very few do that. And I think probably because it's sticky, most people aren't paying attention. Most people aren't going to go through the effort of doing it. So the question is, do you stay with that philosophy, or do you go, as Padre and the committee suggested, saying go to a midpoint and let people, if they choose, to either opt down or opt up?
So, but this decision to choose the default, we should do before we go out for bid.
Yeah,
so that the bids will come back with those
Yeah,
numbers.
because I need to know the day when the bids come in, because what happens is, let's say the bids are tomorrow, the price will come in at 11 o'clock, and we've got to answer within 3 hours, are we taking the bid or not?
Yeah.
So we have to know, what to do. And the problem is, if you wait till the last minute, then you're almost stuck, because you can't say, oh, forget it, we're going to, this isn't the right day or the right condition. As you know, there have been some real anomalies lately with the markets that, and we've seen that, so that's why you don't want to wait to the very end, because then you're boxed in.
Yeah, so it doesn't sound like we're in a huge hurry to do this
Right.
tonight,
unless
but
you have
in
a
the
philosophical direction. I mean, if you
Yeah.
have a philosophical direction, whether it's tonight or 3 months from tonight, it's not going to change. Then we can move forward. It's up to whatever you decide to do. Or also, if you think as a board that we should bid sooner than later, then let us know. We'll go to market sooner.
Yeah.
So we'll, you do have input to how we proceed.
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, please. Go ahead.
So I'm not all that familiar with how this program is administered. I assume it's through a website that you sign up for this?
No, you opt out, Pat. You opt out. In other words, you're put into the program unless you actively opt out of this contract. So all residents are put into the contract, and then you have to opt out to either another provider or a greener or option. So if you do nothing, you're put into the program.
Okay, so
And that's by state law.
it's not like, the residents have a choice, really at first, whether to pick basic or the greener option or the greenest option. It's just whatever this board decides as the default option is what the residents get. And then how are the residents educated as to what their decision-making process may be? Is that through mailers?
Yes.
Is it through, how is the resident educated on the fact that they're in the greener option now, and they have the right to opt down or opt up as the documents state?
There's a mailer. I'm going to have him describe how it is, but that's why there's that gap between mid-August and November, so there's time to notify people. Go ahead.
Yes, that's exactly right. So there would be a mailer that would go to all participants in the program, would explain what option they're in now, and then what the new pricing options are, and explain to them how they could choose something different than the default if they wanted to do that. And there are a few ways to do it. There's a website where they could do it. They can do it by phone if they prefer to do it that way.
And sometimes they come into the office and ask your staff too. We've seen that over the years.
Okay, so I don't know how anybody else feels, if anybody feels strongly that they want to vote on this tonight, but given the information, and the new members of the board, maybe
Right,
you
I'm
want a
sorry,
week
don't mean
to look over it.
I'm just thinking we're going into the summer months, so I mean, we all might be spread out When the time comes, we might not be able to get us all together quick enough.
Well, you know he can't.
No, we need to vote on it soon. So I'm thinking if you want to review for like we have a meeting next week, don't we?
And we have one 2 weeks after
Yeah.
June 1st.
So if you want a week to kind of review the program and look over it and think about it, maybe we can put it on the agenda to make a vote next week, and then we're all set to go out for bid when we're ready. Does that,
That
I
sounds
think
good.
that's appropriate.
okay.
That works.
So, some of the questions I had were already asked. So I'll ask this to Roger. So we're gonna look over this, maybe have some questions, take a vote. Right now, just to make sure I'm clear, that the current thinking is 40-50% mix of green options versus the 67 I think it's at today.
Or 67, correct, yeah.
Would at the current rates kind of put us in the very close to the same range we're in at basic today, just
Correct.
because costs are currently to our benefit.
Yes.
I mean, to Pat's point, we do need to continue to do something, and as we all know, these are tough times for everybody, so, asking them for $10 here and $20 here, those all eventually pile up, but I think looking at the numbers as they're presented today, I like the idea of how you're trying to mix that and make it a little bit more affordable. So if we come back next week to take a vote, is there any chance we'd have a little bit more clarity as to where that would be, or is that too long of a process? Do we have to make the decision before you can get there?
I think it's a question of getting to know some answers, and maybe last time that it happened, I think you took a straw, I think you had a bid 1 week, and then it was deemed very high, and then we waited for 10 days or something, and a bid came in, and that was accepted and moved forward very, very quickly. I think we can do work with Paul and others to design what that number sensitivity is, and right now my models, as I have, I wish I could plug it in and show very quickly. Happy to send it across this matrix as a quick way. But the answers at about, as I said, about 57% class 1 rec, which is 25% higher than, give or take where we are at, is at about 14.9, 14.7, right? Indicative pricing. Now that number may show up at 15.1 or 15.2. Irrespective, that number is about $10 to $12 at the high range of 8,000 to 9,000 kilowatt hours, right? That's the additional. Actually, yeah, at $8,000, 8,000 kilowatt hours at 15.1, it's $10 a month, and that's a very big house that you're looking at generally. So just giving you context, a smaller home, if you're a retiree 2-person, you're generally with air conditioning, even then you're probably running at about 5,000, 7,000, 6,000 kilowatt hours, so to speak, and that is probably in the range of $5 a month.
I mean, my guess is the reason why so many people stay with basic is because it's the default. So if we were to make it greener and, again, be super clear with the communication, which I've seen, it's pretty clear on how to, you can even opt out and get your own supplier. You can opt out of the whole thing. So there's plenty of choice, but it's up to people to do their own due diligence. And I think, especially now where we can lock in some pricing we're not asking them for generally more than what they give today, but we get a higher mix of greener energy. I think, in terms of the future, it's the right thing to do. So, again, my goal would be to try to not ask any more out of today's pocket. I mean, savings is always nice, but I can live with kind of paying the same rates generally, plus or minus a little bit, because if you're not an $8,000 kilowatt hour house, you're going to be at half of that. So what are you talking, $5? And again, not to minimize $5, but
Understandable.
so, I think I'm good with it, and I'll be ready next week.
Okay. Yeah, can we make sure that gets on the agenda for
And if
next
there's
week?
any
We'll vote.
questions, please feel free to reach out to the committee members, and we'll be happy to brief you again on any additional topics.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Roger.
Badri.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's down now.
It looks like next up we have a report and presentation from Weston and Sampson.
Good evening, Paul. How are you? How are you tonight?
Excellent. Good evening.
Do you want to, you've got a presentation.
We do. Do you want me to try and share it this time?
Yeah, why don't you
see
do
if I
that?
can-
That way the board can see it. They have it in their packet, but I just want people at home to see it and people in the room.
Looks like it's disabled. It's not letting me.
Hang on. Christina, can you share him as co-host? Just hang on one second.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's see, try it another way.
Or it's not critical. We can certainly, if you wanted to share, we can
Hi
certainly
there,
talk.
this is Christina. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I would have to remove him from the meeting and bring him back in order to let him be co-host to share.
All right, hold on one second. Let me see if I can pull up the.
Yeah, once someone's in the breakout room, you lose the option to make them a co-host.
Okay, hold on. I don't see it in the revised packets. I'm hoping James had it in the earlier packet. I know it's in the books. That's why I'm having a hard time finding it. Nope. Do you want to just do that, Paul? Paul, just jump out and jump back in.
Sure. If that's the easiest.
Yeah, it'll be easier it'll be easier for people to follow.
All right. I'll see you in a few.
Strange that it made it into the book, but it didn't get the link on the agenda. That's a first. Here he comes. Thank you. Welcome back, Paul. Thank you.
All righty. And can you
Yes.
see my screen by chance?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So, good evening, all. My name is Paul McKinley from Weston and Sampson. I'm joined by my colleague, Linda Cook, and we're going to give you a brief rundown of where we are at with the PFAS cleanup at 54 Richardson Road, the DPW facility. All righty. So,
Paul, you're muted. Paul, I can't hear you.
nobody can hear me?
Now you can hear you.
Now we
you
can.
There you go.
Yep, better.
Got me now?
Yes.
Can you, everybody? Perfect. All right.
Again.
And still see the slides? Everybody okay?
Yes.
All righty. So looks like I just have to lean in a little closer here. So PFAS. PFAS was released at the site. PFAS or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances is a suite. It's made up of many PFAS substances. You'll hear Linda talk about it and myself too. About two in particular. There's a PFAS subset is PFOS, PFOS, and PFOA, PFOA. And so you'll hear those terms. Those are part of the PFAS family, but they're indicative of the source of the PFAS that we're assessing and treating at the 54 Richardson facility. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. PFOS, I'll jump to the.
Paul, you cut out
Your
again.
volume cut out again, Paul.
Am I losing everybody?
Now you're back.
Yeah, you're back.
And share and maybe speak at the same time. So I'll keep going, and please flag me if my volume goes out. So again, PFAS released at the facility at PFOS, PFOS is the dominant signature for what was released at the 54 Richardson site, and other compounds and there are other sources which are contributing to PFAS at the site. So in order to address the PFAS, in consultation with Mass DEP, we have a pump and treat system, which...
You cut out again.
So strange.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah.
I apologize. I don't know what's going on here. I think it's the bandwidth from where I'm presenting. But the remedial system has pumped and treated about 124 million gallons. We've met all discharge limits. And as you'll see from some future slides, it has significantly reduced PFAS and PFOS that are at the site. What I'm presenting today is a snapshot. We do quarterly seasonal groundwater sampling out there to track the progress of our remedial efforts. I will say this event, it was in March. We typically do it in February, but we actually had a real winter this winter, so we weren't able to access all of the monitoring wells. So we actually pushed the sampling a month into March. And the results were actually a little anomalous this round. We've actually been showing some very steady and significant decreases in the overall PFAS concentration in the wells that we monitor. This round, we actually had a few more exceedances than are typical. Usually you have about 4 to 6 wells that exceed the Massachusetts DEP limit, which is 20 parts per trillion. And actually this round, there was several more. There was 12 wells that exceeded. Linda's going to talk a little bit about the compounds and why that might be. Again, it's one round. We've been doing this for several years now. I wouldn't be alarmed by it. It's the concentrations are all within historical ranges, and we are dealing with parts per trillion levels, so very, very low. And again, there might be some seasonal variation going on there. We sampled it in March when there was snow and other precipitation that had melted, which was actually a little different than previous years, where we just really haven't had a real winter with snow. So one area that I'll highlight in the next slide is the dog park area. That's if you're familiar with 54 Richardson, it's the northern portion of the site. We refer to as the dog park area. The well that's a real indicator of the concentrations that occur at the dog park, this WSMW 104, actually increased a little bit to 86. Again, well within historical ranges. Early on, it was up in the 500s, so not very alarming. But it is an area of the site where is often characterized by a separate source, and Mass DEP wants us to really track it, and it's a concern that we might have to expand the remedial system to that area if it persists at higher levels. It's actually been below standards for several rounds now, so we're hopeful this is just an anomaly and it'll go snap back to below standards. There are a few other wells as well that you can see on the slide here that have potentially different sources and have spiked a little bit in this round. But again, we're really not concerned with it. It's one round. We have a fair body of data, and again, hopefully this is just an anomaly. So just real quickly, here's a picture of the site. The yellow circles here are the wells that have exceeded this round. It's less than half of the points that we monitor. So again, it's likely a seasonal fluctuation or a spike in what's coming actually from the site, from off-site. Just a couple points here to note. Right in here, I don't know, hopefully everybody can see my cursor. This is the source area where we think the original release of PFAS occurred, and it's also where we have our recovery well to operate the pump and treat system. MW1 here has been the basically a canary in the coal mine, sort of the highest concentration well that historically has ever been on site, and it's right next to our right within our treatment area and near our recovery well. And I'll show you some of the concentrations that we're currently getting there, but really a very significant decrease in the overall concentrations. The remedial system has been doing its job. I will highlight that we term this as the PFOS source area. So the signature of what was released is predominantly PFOS, and Linda will talk a little bit more about this. Up here, again, this MW104 I just spoke about in the dog park area, oftentimes is characterized by a different signature of the PFOS, and it appears to be a different source, as is this location down here, this MW101. And I'll also say that groundwater generally flows from right to left or east to west across the screen here, as does Cold Springs Brook flows from, this is the up gradient to down gradient. And we see some high concentrations, oftentimes exceed the standard, flowing from off-site, from up gradient onto our property. So again, this is a source of PFAS that oftentimes we refer to this as background or a regional PFAS source. So just something to keep in mind as we discuss this a little further. As I indicated, this is just a straight graph of the concentrations in MW1. It spiked at about 1,400 parts per trillion right before we started the remedial system. You can see this precipitous drop-off is when we started operating the remedial system, and it's continuing on a steady decline. Back in November, our last sampling round, it was 2.1 parts per trillion on PFAS 6 is what we measure against the standards. And again, it increased just slightly to 11.3, still below standards, still about half of what the DEP regulatory threshold is, but something for us to watch as we go forward. Again, we have next two slides here. This is just to show the PFOS sort of source area. Again, there was we're not exactly sure what was released or how the PFOS got into the site, but we're very confident it got released right in this area, right to the north of the 8-bay garage. And again, that area that's characterized by this PFOS signature we call the PFOS source area, and it's what we're really focusing our remedial efforts on versus a background or alternate sources of PFAS that we're picking up in some of the wells. And Linda will pick it up from here to talk about some of the different sources and some of the data we have.
How we determine what we believe is the DPW source versus what the background source looks like. And that helps us characterize the extent of the PFAS that came from this DPW source. So the top graph shows the DPW source. The acronyms along the bottom, along the x-axis, are just acronyms that represent different PFAS compounds. The two we're talking a lot about tonight are highlighted in blue. That's both PFOA and PFOS. And you can see simply, your eyes can see by this graph that PFOS is much more dominant, a much higher concentration than PFOA. So the bottom graph represents what background looks like. That's the upgradient well to the east of our site. And this is what's coming in as the regional background. This is what's in the groundwater prior to it even making it to the site. What we're seeing here is a different ratio. PFOA being at a concentration that's higher than PFOS. The y-axis, I didn't mention it, that's just simply the concentration. But even from the untrained eye, you can look at these two histograms and notice that there's a difference in these profiles. And it's these differences that allow us to identify what we believe to be related to the DPW source and what we believe is related to other sources. Next slide. The other really interesting thing about the background levels in this area, if the EPA MCLs that have been set recently set limits for these two compounds, for PFOA and PFOS, at 4 nanograms per liter in drinking water. So if we're looking at the concentration trends in MW3 over time, we can see that dashed line represents the 4 nanograms per liter or parts per trillion. And we can see that PFOS often exceeds, even in our background, and PFO in this case, in this location, always exceeds that 4 nanogram per liter threshold, which just provides us with an indication that, you know, historic activities just in Chelmsford, it could be due to domestic septic systems where every one of us releases on a daily basis the clothes we wash, the products we use, the cleaning products. Many of these contain PFAS compounds, and over the decades for which they were commonly used, those migrated into the septic systems and then into our groundwater. And then certainly industry up in the Chelmsford Lowell area along the Merrimack might have also been a source of this regional background that we're seeing. So the trends at MW3 that we want to point out is we've been looking at it, and we looked at it back in 2022 and more recently again in May of 2024. It's been pretty constant, but we did see an uptick in March of 2025. And as Paul that indicated, that could have been due to differences in, you know, precipitation, the melting of snow. You know, we are investigating this to see if we can highlight any of that based on groundwater elevation and such. But even in the background, we saw an increase. The blue bar here represents that PFAS 6. And while this well has been trending below the PFAS exceedance criteria of 20, more recently in this March sampling, even our background was exceeding the Mass DEP limit. Next slide. We saw something similar in the PZ1 is a location in the stream, again representing background exceedance. And even in this location, we saw an uptick in concentrations in this most recent March 2024 sampling. And again, at this location, that increase would again exceed the Mass DEP's limits. So the dog park is interesting in that back in 2023, this location was, you know, kind of low concentrations. We saw a spike in concentration over the course of the year that again came back down. And for the last 4 sampling rounds, the PFAS 6 concentration was below 20 nanograms per liter. This most recent round of sampling, we saw that concentration tick back up. Again, why we're seeing this, we're not quite sure. Is it associated with this general increase that we've seen not only in the background but in the stream? But again, just trying to research that more and looking forward to the next round of sampling that's planned in May to see and hope that that concentration starts trending back down to what we've been seeing during the 2024 sampling events.
And I guess I'll pick it up. One of the endeavors that we're currently operating on is we're trying to expand the remedial system, or we are in process of that. We're adding 2 more vessels. Here's pictured actually the remedial system that we extract water, we treat it with a combination of both carbon and granulated activated carbon and resin. And the thought here is we're adding 2 more vessels, so we'll be able to operate the system in parallel instead of in series, and we'll be able to increase the flow.
You dropped out again, Paul.
Back again. Here.
Paul, you keep cutting out. Oh, he's frozen now. It looks as if it's bandwidth. Paul, you might want to turn off your video to help with bandwidth.
Am I back?
Yes.
Can everybody
You
hear
are
me?
back. And
Yes.
we
All right,
didn't
perfect.
hear
So-
you.
so-
You might want to bump back a slide.
So last few slides here, we're having technical difficulties. Last few slides here. This is just, Linda referred to the MCL or the maximum contaminant levels, which is the EPA threshold. They're proposed to go down from the Massachusetts standard of 20 down to these individually adopted compounds of 4 parts per trillion. This next slide here shows that there's, with all the changes in many things these days, I think EPA is re-looking at that, and maybe we might get some relief, but this is really looking at our finish line here. What's our goal line for remediation? Thus far, it has been 20. PFAS 6 standard in Massachusetts is 20. They would have to adopt a lower contaminant level if these MCLs are adopted by EPA, but that's in flux. So just to wrap up here, the remedial system has been very, very effective at reducing PFAS concentrations. March 2024, actually the last round in March 2025 has shown some slight increases. As Linda was presenting, background is also increasing. So this may be a function of seasonal variations, precipitation. We're taking a look at what might have caused that, but the best thing we can do is keep our quarterly monitoring program going, and we'll track it. And hopefully this was an anomaly. So I apologize for the technical difficulties, but we'll turn it over to any questions.
So Paul, you're going to do sampling in May, later this month? Is that the next round of sampling? Did you say May?
No, it's February. Yes, so it's May.
Okay.
We're back on the regular schedule.
So, okay. And then we probably see that data in beginning of July?
Yeah,
Roughly,
it's
sometime
the
in
lab
July?
has been about 30 days on lab turnaround, so it takes us a few weeks to do it. So
sometime in July. Okay.
You got it.
Yeah.
Does anyone have questions?
Yeah, where is that treatment plant?
It's right at 54 Richardson Road.
Okay.
If you were to go in the gate, it's to the left. You can probably point it out there on the map, but it's right there on the left.
It's right there in that building, if you can see my cursor.
That first shed there to the left as you come in the main entrance.
Okay.
It used to be a vehicle bay, and we converted it to the operations for the treatment. So Paul, since I'm relatively new at this PFAS remediation thing, so all the stuff that we've started to identify that are off-site sources, that with it all flowing onto the site, is that making it more difficult for us to achieve the numbers at remediating the site? Meaning, if we're cleaning up the groundwater, but there's water flowing in that has PFAS material in it, are we now continuing to clean up because of that extra inflow?
Yeah, you nailed it exactly right. So, we have an on-site source of PFAS that we're treating and that was released in this area. But as Linda talked about, this is the MW3 background well she was discussing. Here's Coldstreams Brook, and we're seeing, what's coming onto the site is even exceeding standards. So, how are we expected to ever achieve those remedial standards if what's flowing onto the site already exceeds it? So that's the challenge. And so that's what, Linda has been spending a lot of time sort of, dissecting the signatures and looking at the sourcing. And I think that's ultimately going to lead to our argument to close the site out is differentiating what's background versus what was released. And I will say, before the March 2025 sampling round, I mean, we were getting close to the Massachusetts standard in a lot of the wells, and we were approaching that remedial goal. Keep in mind that the remedial sort of goal line looks to be changing, so they're going to make the standards more stringent. That's an influx a little bit, but we are making significant progress in treating what was released at the DPW site. Oftentimes we call it that PFOS area or the DPW release. Again, we're making big progress there, but we're never going to get out unless we can differentiate that with background.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have anything for Paul? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Good night.
Thank you, Linda.
Good night.
Okay, next in reports and presentations, we have John Ray regarding 223 Pine Hill Road, a process violation grievance with the Conservation Commission's intended use of Coolest Farm.
Hi.
Hello.
John Ray, 223 Pine Hill Road. I had asked a question for all the members for my benefit, to at least do a drive-by of the Coolest property so you'd be familiar with it, because it saves a lot of explanation and I asked for it after the May 2nd because we did a significant amount of work that week. Can show of hands, was everybody able to do that with the rain?
No.
Okay,
I
that's understandable.
I'm not sure. I have been to Coolest Farms in the past, but not since May 2nd.
I was there this weekend.
You were there this weekend. So what we achieved, and I sent reports in, what we achieved that week is we were able to, the Friends of Coolest were able to mow both sides. I was concerned that we would lose the right-hand side access to seeing the stones. And the stones, the field stones, do all the damage to the DPW equipment, to the lawnmower, and so that causes a lot of work. We lost doing any stone removal over the wintertime. We were told not to remove the field stone, and then the weather made it difficult to do anything. So it was too wet. Strange. I've got 3 pages, but maybe I can cut it down a little bit. A little bit of history. When we bought the property, and Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul you had said the residents would decide what the use of the property was going to be.
I don't think that's entirely accurate.
Okay.
No way did I say that the residents were ultimately going to decide. What we created was a task force to provide guidance to the town manager, and that information would be conveyed to the select board. And in fact, that was done by the chair, Mike Raisbeck.
Okay.
But I don't think I ever said that the residents were going to decide what would happen to that property.
I heard you differently, but I might have been wrong. Okay, so I'm okay
with it. Yeah, but I just.
Yeah. But that's what I had, and wow, look at all we got here.
I don't think I have that authority to make that determination.
Okay, all
I
right.
can't make that statement.
It's a perception, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a perception, and I do know that there's a gentleman, Mr. McLaughlin, did speak to the Conservation Commission. He was the chair.
The former chair was Dave McLaughlin of the Conservation Commission.
Dave McLaughlin. Yeah. And he said that the Warren article did not, at the time, November or October, that the article did not specifically specify the land to be, why don't I put my glasses on? To be used as conservation space, just as open space in agriculture. There was no mention directing the management to the Conservation Commission.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So that's just a little bit of history. So when I went on vacation in June, and when we came back, Coolest was reassigned to the Conservation Commission to property manage. Okay, and my first discussion with Carl was in September, when he told me not to mow any longer. And I said, if we don't mow, we can't see the rocks. So, and he specifically said we couldn't remove the rocks. So we got through that. In the end of November, he had actually blocked DPW from doing any work on the right-hand field. We got through that. DPW went in and brush hogged all the right-hand field, which allowed us to access the bittersweet on the edge of the field. So we were able to, in the wintertime, cut all the very large, up to 10-inch vines off the trees, saved a bunch of trees. And on the package that I sent, the complaint that I sent, I had some pages in there. I had a picture of the farm before it was sold, when it was active. Then I had a picture of the right field when, there we go. There's pictures of it mowed. If you go down further, there's a picture of the right field before it was brush hogged. and go down a little further, there's the original, there's a picture of the farm, Mark, right, that was in the house that was torn down, of the farm when it was operating. If you just come back, if you go down, nope, the other way. There's pictures of the left and right field in the fall. And it's quite open. And we managed to, DPW did all that work, I might add. They've done a very large percent, 95% of the work, amazing group. We got through the winter, we cut the bittersweet, all right? And the problem with cutting the bittersweet is that once you cut it, you have to cut it, recut it for the next 3 to 5 years to keep the regrowth down. Otherwise, it's just going to grow back up again, and it's going to kill all the trees. So I've had several discussions with Carl in conservation. I've been to the committee, sat down with him, he's adamant that I don't do any more cutting, but he doesn't tell me why until this month when he said we don't see a reason for we don't see a common or a park in Coulis. Whoa. The residents have been using Coulis since August of last year and loving it as a local picnic area, park area. They love it, absolutely. And I question as many of them without interfering with them, because I'm generally on the property 3 to 5 days a week, and I see many of them, and many of them are right here, all right? But all of a sudden, I'm getting a lot of pushback from conservation, and I'm wondering who's in charge here. This isn't conservation land. This is, to my knowledge, this is still preservation land. It's not conservation land. Tell me, Paul, if I'm right, it has to be voted at town meeting to move it from preservation to conservation.
Do you want me to answer your question?
Please.
You asked who's in charge here. When you were here, this presentation was for the board on May 20th, 2024. Mike Raisbeck, the chair, announced that the Coulis Farm is now open to the public and recognized members of the task force and staff of the DPW. He reviewed the task force and task force work party report attached hereto and made a part of these minutes. Discussion ensued. Board member Timmons noted that the task force had completed its work and that the project was now under the responsibility of the Conservation Commission as the final authority on the land. Town Manager Cohen added that the land provisions were being handled similarly to the Warren Pole property, with the Conservation taking the necessary steps to file the appropriate paperwork with the state. The management of the property and scheduling of activities will all go through the Conservation Commission, with the task force working group stepping forward to provide the ongoing necessary maintenance under the purview of the Commission, and ongoing communication continues. Once the necessary forms are received by the state, the license agreement will outline the activities to take place on the property. That was the vote, May 20th, 2024.
I was not here. I participated in that task force, as you know.
Okay.
And I never saw the video. I never saw any of that stuff. I just all of a sudden became the person that was responsible for taking care of with the Friends of Coulis, taking care of the property. And we were taking care of it as the residents indicated what they wanted. And you've been getting emails today and yesterday, a few of them, and actually more than I expected, because I didn't do a due diligence and I didn't know what was necessary, but I felt like maybe you should have the opportunity to see what the other people were talking about. Carl had said that he had talked with Donna and said that the family was interested in returning the property to nature. Well, that was before the property was cleared. I got Mark here, a member of the family, and the family is enamored by what DPW has done, and the Friends of the Coolest family has done in a little bit. But they really like the property the way it's set up right now. This is all volunteers. This isn't costing the town anything. So, you know, I don't know where this is going to go. I would like to continue making this available, but I feel that Conservation Commission are overstepping what they're doing, and they want to revert this back. Now, tomorrow they're going to present a plan, but that's tomorrow. I don't know what the plan is. I don't think he had a plan. He had it in his head, I'm sure. Carl's very smart, and I'm not taking anything away from Carl, because I just don't think he has the bandwidth. Anybody in that capacity, with everything he's doing, fantastic things for the town. But I just don't think he's got the capacity to be nimble enough to manage a multi-use park-like structure for the town. That's my opinion, and I think it's the opinion of the residents that use the property. Not everybody. It costs the town nothing for this. But if we do nothing, we're going to lose the sight of the rocks, and it's going to just be invasive regrowth. It's starting right now. I haven't mowed since the rainstorms.
So Mr. Wright, first of all, thank you for all the work that you do over there. I can tell you're obviously dedicated to keeping the piece of land looking the way that it does, or the way that you would like it, and the residents who are kind of in line with you. So what is your goal of the grievance and being here today? Is it the mowing of the pastures in particular? Is that the kind of item that you're here looking to get some sort of resolution on?
Yes, I think we've achieved the extent of the clearing we could possibly do, reasonably do. And it's about, Paul, what, 3 acres, 3.5 acres of land? It's of a 23-acre site.
And
the rest of it's all natural.
You're looking for permission of some sort to continue mowing outside of the Conservation Commission's.
We have the possibility of having a very nice park for the local park in that area, like Red Wing. Red Wing is huge. It's a beautiful place. And I would like to, and I am willing to continue working with the people that are available to do that. But I've been told, get rid of the shed. He wants to reduce the parking lot, and he's fighting use of the park. Okay, and I just don't think that's appropriate. I really think my outcome of this, I think it really belongs. I'm not trying to say how it should be done, but parks and DPW facilities is a great place where this really belongs. Until it goes to conservation, and I personally have got so much invested in it, I would hate to take that away from citizens. But so long as it's usable by the citizens, I think it ought to go to DPW and under the facilities group.
Okay. So I've gotten a lot of emails from yourself and from a lot of other people in town the last couple of days, and if it's okay with you, I can just share with you my kind of impression of what's going on.
I like collaboration.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not here to demand something. I'm here
Yes.
to collaborate.
Yeah.
I'd like to get it resolved.
So my understanding is that we need to get a restriction on the property because the number one kind of goal is to make sure that it is maintained as open space and that it is restricted so that it can't be developed on in any large capacity, right?
Right.
That the law requires the board to put a conservation.
Yes, and the law
a
requires us
restriction
to
on
do
the
this. So
property.
we have to get a restriction on the property. So last year,
Sorry, that's a select board is going to have to
Select
do
board
that?
has to execute that.
Yeah.
We've asked the commission to prepare the document following the same work they did at the Warren Pole property.
yes.
And
So
as we
last
know,
year
that
when we
takes
gave,
time.
so last year when we gave the Conservation Commission basically the oversight to oversee the property,
And to
it was
prepare the
kind of step
restriction.
one into starting the process of getting that conservation restriction,
Yes.
right? So, or preservation restriction or whatever type of restriction it is, but a restriction is necessary to protect the land. So as part of getting that restriction, there are very strict requirements into what is done with the land. I think that the Conservation's Commission's guidelines about the mowing of the pasture in particular has something to do with the conservation restriction requirements partly. I know that they have expressed concerns about the wildlife and the fact that it's nesting season and the impact that mowing has on the wildlife that live in that area. I think that there are some kind of valid concerns that they have there around conservation in general, and then there are some legal concerns that they have about what they're doing on the land, whether it will be a problem when trying to get that conservation restriction in the future. And I think that this is something that they will probably share more with you about tomorrow. I mean, that is kind of my impression. I appreciate the work that you were doing over there. It's really amazing that we have people in town who will go out and give away their time to mow pieces of property in town so that residents can enjoy them. In this case, I think that it sounds like you still have full range to go and keep the trails intact and the access to the trails via the parking lot. But as far as mowing the meadow, the pasture in particular goes, I don't know that is, I'm not sure that is in the best interest of keeping the land open land, or that it is in line with what the Conservation Commission sees as conservation use. So, that's kind of my impression. So I think you guys are a little bit misaligned there. Hopefully you can get on the same
thank you.
page. But
Thank
and as
you.
far as the long-term use of the land, I don't know that being a recreational park like the center of town, like the square in the center of town, is being mowed and having trees and being somewhere that people are walking through the pasture, is on the table. I mean, I think that that's a bigger conversation. That would be something that would go to town meeting, and it would be DPW maintained in the long term. And I think that that's a much, much bigger conversation. So, I mean, if that's kind of what you're looking to get to do in the long term, I think that there's probably, and Paul would probably be able to elaborate on this better than myself, but a much bigger process that would have to.
I think that's a fair goal, a doable goal, primarily because DPW was able to brush hog the right-hand side, and we can see the stones. No matter what condition it takes, the field stones have to be pulled out. We've missed the window from this past winter when DPW
But the field stones have to be
could-
pulled out so that you can mow.
so you can
Is that correct?
mow, brush hog, do anything, right?
But
Yeah.
the brush hog has gone through. They've pulled out the stones that are impeding the brush hog already, or
A
it's
few.
just going over them.
Very
Yeah.
few. There was 3 feet of weeds in there, and it grew in about 6 weeks last year, and we lost sight of the stones. So in November, they were able, because of the end of season, they were able to cut all that back. We could find the stones and a lot of metal, and remove the safety issue there. I question the comment about the nesting. I think true birds nest in large meadows, but not small fields like these here. and that's not been my experience when I mow. I go very, very slow, and to avoid any animals and to scare them away. I watch for them, and I have never come across a nest in the fields at any time that I've mowed. And if I did, I'd go around them. I'd avoid that. But in mowing since August, I'll just tell you that's what I did. And I never did come across any of that stuff. So
Yeah, and I'm not a conservation, I'm not a conservation agent. I don't know that much about wildlife and maintaining conservation lands, and disturbing nesting habitats, to be honest. But, that's part of the reason I think why we kind of gave the Conservation Commission the oversight of the land, because they are the people who know more about things like that. I mean, I'll tell you, I had a whole bunch of weeds in my backyard 5 years ago, right? And my ex-husband took a truck home from work and ripped them all out. And I never saw a rabbit in my backyard ever again. So, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong either. But afterwards, I felt pretty bad because I realized I ripped out all that rabbit habitat.
I've never seen a rabbit over at Cool's Farms. But they're all over my yard, which is 4 doors up.
Yeah.
Which is mowed.
Yeah.
But so collaboration is wonderful because you get different ideas. But I really think I've tried to collaborate with and work with Carl, and it just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And to go into the tribunal of a conservation session, which to me looks like the 1400s, and it's late at night. I'm 79. I'm a little too old to stay up till 10 o'clock at night. So it hasn't worked. I just think that in most towns, property like this belongs to a Parks Department or a Park and Recreation Department. We no longer have a Parks and Recreation Department, but we do have a very fine DPW department. And I think that the same goals that whatever you want, I will do. But it would work better if it's under DPW and the facilities, and more appropriately over there. Think about it. You're going to. This is your property, it's not mine.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Paul,
or
we're
comments?
kind of restricted on what we can do because of the CPA funds that we use to purchase it.
Yeah, it has to be placed under a preservation restriction. There's also restrictions on wetlands, and that you can't cut in the wetlands. And last year, Carl went out there, and David Koontz, they marked the wetland areas that couldn't be mowed. And that was a source of contention as well, but that's a state and local bylaw requirement. And I hope we're past that point at this point, that we're no longer mowing in the wetland areas.
I've never mowed. We have never
You remember
mowed.
when they put the fence out? Remember
That was the
buffer
buffer
That was the
zone.
buffer. Exactly.
That was a buffer zone,
You cannot
Paul.
mow in the buffer zone, John. You cannot mow in the buffer zone for wetlands. That was the point. That's why they put the fence out. Because that's under state regulations and local regulations that you can't disturb a buffer zone.
Show me the regulation, Paul.
I don't have one in
So,
front of me.
Miss-
I'm not the Conservation Commission, but I've been around for 35 years in this business, and I know for a fact you cannot disturb a buffer zone, which is what you were doing, which is why they went out there and put the fencing up, John. And you know that. They told you that, not to cut in the wetland buffer zone.
Okay, so Mr. Ray, so this is why we gave the Conservation Commission oversight of this site last year. For this very reason, because they have the knowledge of the legal requirements from the state, they have the knowledge of the wildlife. And that is kind of my impression of what's going on here. I'm inclined to generally go along with their suggestion when they say that mowing is detrimental to some of the wildlife living in the area, because they are the subject matter experts that we have in the town. I don't know how the other members of the board feel, and I don't know that we actually have anything that we can do for you right now. I'm not sure exactly what you are looking for us to do on this grievance. I do understand and hear your concerns. But I'm not sure if, Paul, if you have any input about what Mr. Ray might want to do, if he's looking to change the use of the land, if he wants to create an amendment for town meeting in the fall to do that, maybe that is the process he is actually kind of looking to undergo here.
Can I have Karen?
I just want to bring up, I went to Coolest Farm for the first time myself last August. And so I was walking around the trails, and the first thing I noticed that really freaked me out was the amount of bittersweet that was killing a lot of trees.
Yeah.
One, unfortunately, did die, but I tried my best. It was huge. Some of them we did. What I'm concerned about is if this just goes to nature.
So I think that the conservation has also given the Friends of Coolest explicit permission to remove bittersweet from the area also, from what I understand.
Very hard to do when you're in a bunch of overgrowth, right? Because how do you get to it? Plus there's other invasives as well, and all of that's going to grow up and just be a problem and destroy the whole thing. And that's part of the reason why, I appreciate that we are cutting
I don't
the
know
grass.
that
We do not cut the grass anywhere near the buffer zone. I just want to make that clear. He's not done that.
From what I understand, that the guidelines do also indicate that the invasive species do not need to be cut consistently all the time, and that once or twice a year if it
What about
occurs.
if they're killing trees, though? That's not conservation.
I think you've noted here that the commission did not say there would never be any cutting out there. As
Yes.
you know, on Warren Pole, they cut once a year to avoid these type of invasives and the tree and other
The
invasive
frequency
growth.
is.
I do a lot
I
of
think
the
what they're
cutting
saying
myself
is they don't
at
want the
Warren
cutting
Pole
every week.
and at the Cranberry
or every other
Bog
week.
and at all of these places. No one's doing it except us. So, but I know they're doing mostly at Coolest. But I did a whole bunch at the beginning of the Cranberry Bog because I don't want it to go into the bog itself.
Yeah.
And then I've done some, of course, at Warren Pole along the trails. It only seems to be in the sunnier areas, so I always try to get it as much as I can, but it's going to keep coming if we don't. And it's just me,
So-
and Thanksgiving Forest, I've done that too.
So Aaron, I agree with what you said. I think we need to see what the Conservation Commission comes back with and how they decide to work with the Friends of Coolest. As you mentioned, John, collaboration, I think, is the key word here. And I think everybody needs to come to a decision about how it's going to move forward. You're entitled to your opinion. You and Karen and Carl Bischoff and everybody else are entitled to their opinions, and it comes down to just who has the authority to enforce what they feel should happen to that property. And I think we'll just have to wait and see what the Conservation Commission comes up with on this particular property.
Oh,
That's
And they're going to
I thought you
present
said
something
collaboration.
tomorrow night.
Well, yeah.
Well, tomorrow night they're going to present. They have a presentation for the public in regard to what their plan for kind of maintenance is. So I'd be curious to see that before we can even have a meaningful conversation here. We kind of have to hear from them about what their plan is
They
also.
have a plan
so.
to not just let it go crazy, and they want to do some amount of maintenance?
I don't know all the
Okay.
details. None of us will until tomorrow night, I guess. So.
All right, thank you.
In the public meeting.
Has that discussion been, is that relatively new, this meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow night, or was that the plan all along for them to?
I don't know.
I think they've been working. I think they've been working to
They've
make
been
a
working
more
on it.
clear plan.
They've been working on the baseline survey and other work that has to take place to get a restriction placed on the property. That's been going on for some time.
And
it's still
when we-
work. And in fact, that has to go, and they still have to do the perimeter survey, and other work has to take place out there.
And so, to everybody's point, at the end of the day, we gotta follow the law. But I'm, maybe a little naive here. I'm still trying to figure out how we even got to this meeting and this discussion, how these things, how this didn't kind of get worked out so that these folks know that, that we're gonna have this presentation and there is a plan for this property. Because I'm gonna tell you what, guys, when I voted to spend all that money, which was a little bit more than I wanted to spend, I never envisioned that just being grown and trimmed up once a year, right? I mean, that might have changed how I had done that. Now, if we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing because we're well-intentioned and not experts in it, and we're doing something even unintentionally of mowing in the wrong spot, then that has to be addressed. And I just I'm trying to figure out how it came this way. And I don't want to see the property just become something I drive by, because then to me, you might as well sell it back and let them build up the condos. Because that's not,
I don't think anybody's looking for a property to drive by. The trails and everything else will be open.
Okay.
I don't think there's any conservation property where there wouldn't be a cleared area to get to the trails, just like you see at Warren Pole. So I don't think anybody's saying it's a refuge that nobody's going to exit beyond the parking lot.
and I'm not, Paul, I'm not.
I just
that's
didn't know,
not
but
what
that
I'm
impression has been put out there that it's meant, it's
That-
being put as a refuge, and that's not what anybody's intending to do.
No, and that's, I understand that. I just, this is Chelmsford, we value open space, and somehow this is the discussion tonight. And I feel like there probably could have been a better way, that's all. That's just, I'm one opinion, I'm not speaking for everybody else up at the table here. But I'd like to see this resolved, I'd like to see it done legally and properly with the right expertise, and I'd like to see folks that donate all of that time to do all that work that I struggle to do at my own house, be recognized for that and not feel like this is a path forward. And again, maybe I just don't have all of the history, because I don't attend all those conservation committee meetings.
So Paul, I was not sure about the invasives in the buffer zone. I didn't see, and I've done a lot of research, but I didn't see anything in there that the state laws are very vague about invasive species. All right? So I did a little bit of cutting in there. I haven't cut much this year, and I will not cut. I'm the one that's running the lawnmower most of the time, and all you got to do is tell me, and you've already told me tonight, do not cut the buffer zone. And it's done, okay? But we need to work together, all right? But I don't want to lose what we have that the residents are using it for. That's why you're getting emails, that's why everybody's here. If you want to hear from the family, Mark's here. They love that property.
You don't.
John, we spent a lot of time together last year. I value your contributions, what you do out there. I don't know what more to do. You're directly speaking to the chair and to the Conservation Commission, who this board assigned to manage the property. So I don't think it's a communication issue. I think it's an issue that you don't like the decision that the commission and Carl has presented to you, and you file what's called a process violation grievance. I don't know what the grievance is or what the violation is, other than you disagree with what the Conservation Commission has decided.
The grievance, Paul, is he doesn't want me to mow anything over on the fields.
But that's not a grievance. That's a difference of opinion, John. And I think that's what disturbed me when I got this thing. It sounded like there was a violation. That's what it says, process violation grievance. It's not, and so I don't know what the violation is and how they've done anything wrong.
I'm going to tell you, it was the removal of the rocks. He was told they can't do that, but then he found out that, no, that's only stone walls that you can't remove, which we're never going to do.
No.
But it's not the field stone. And that was why he started the grievance, because there's a law, you found the law, it's in your document, right?
What Carl said is he did not want to disturb the rocks in the field while he was preparing and working with the Sudbury Valley trustees who's going to hold the restriction on the property, because they wanted to provide them with the baseline of the property. That's how it was explained to me, is that he did not want to perform this work.
He told me it was illegal, Paul.
Yes.
Right, he did not want to do this. He did not want to do this work. I don't know if, I wasn't in part of the conversation.
No,
That's
but
what
he
was
did
explained.
tell me it was illegal to remove the rocks.
Yes.
He gave me, cited the law.
So that might be,
That's
folks,
between you
that
and
might
them.
be part of the requirements for the conservation restriction. So I feel like we're mixing words here.
So he's not coming from, expertise,
Well,
but saying things like that.
From the perspective of someone who's waiting to get a conservation restriction approved, perhaps it is not advised, or perhaps it makes the conservation restriction unable to be acquired.
That's what he should have said.
Okay, so we're meshing words here. I mean, you guys, I think there is some miscommunication
Like
here.
I said earlier, they're not the same thing.
I really hope that tomorrow night will be a productive meeting, and that the Conservation Commission will come back with something that is amenable to everyone, and that, we can come up with something. in the meantime, I'm not sure what we can do for you here, other
Okay,
than
but
thank
we
you.
We leave this.
And yes, and we have a record of the grievance, and we are all following what's going on, and
Didn't I read that?
No.
You haven't read any.
They have all your documents.
yes,
So-
we have everything, and we have the emails from people
You
that
don't have-
live in the area, and we're all paying close attention to what's going on over there. And there will be more
Aaron, if I
conversation.
may,
But yeah, please.
What I just heard was Carl was saying you can't change the baseline while they're trying to do this determination. And by removing those stones, you're changing the baseline. So that's, I don't know if it's illegal or against the rules, however you want to spin it.
That's exactly what he said, that it was illegal.
It was illegal to move the rocks.
Yes,
That's what he said.
and that's disingenuous. When you just be honest, say, listen, I don't want to touch the land until whatever, but that's not what was said. And that's what.
Well, it
had
may
said
be
that.
illegal to alter the land while they're still doing the
Baseline survey.
baseline survey.
Didn't say that either.
But that's not really the issue. The issue is the land was bought for one.
Madam Chair, I can't hear anybody from the audience.
Yeah, sorry. I'm
The
sorry.
issue-
Sorry,
the
folks,
issue-
if
Can we go on your recommendation that we wait and see what conservation says
yeah,
tomorrow night, please?
folks, if it's okay with you, I think that we've heard your concerns, and we've seen the emails, and I think a lot of us have a really good idea of what's going on here. If it's okay with you, we'd like to watch the Conservation Commission meeting tomorrow night and see what happens, and think about this. And if you would like to come back and revisit us afterwards, we have general input, public input every select board meeting, and we
On
can
your
bring up the
schedule,
conversation again.
I really want to have the dialogue, not a 3-minute me speaking and not, need to be able to hear from you.
Mm-hmm.
I need your direction.
Well, it's just so important. People have put so much time into cleaning up Coulis. It's been a lot of volunteers, a lot of DPW work cleaning up in the space. It
Yes,
looks
ma'am, we
so
understand.
much-
You don't want to see it go
You don't want to see
overgrown
it
and go to
go
waste.
to
Tick Haven.
Tick Haven, where people can't use it. And even to get to those trails, you have to walk through overgrown space with ticks and stuff. The people want to use that space. They come down with their kids, and the kids run around, and the dogs, and everybody has a good time. You know, Paul, that was a mess. And it's,
Yes,
and
and
it's-
I'm the one who directed the DPW to clean it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so I
it's
know the
beautiful now,
mess
and
that
now-
it
Thank you,
was.
Paul.
It was greater than everything that was
And
done
they
out there.
cleared the other section
agree.
too.
But let-
And
but
it's
let-
beautiful now, and now you want it to go back to,
No.
I don't think
No,
that's
we
what
do not.
anybody has said.
well.
I think they said is they didn't want the
They don't want it
weekly
mowed
mowing.
for, they'll mow it once a year or once every 3 years. And so that's
That's not reasonable.
not reasonable. You might as well, I live on that street. You might
So-
as well let it go back to, put a condo there or a lady slipper. I'd rather have that than it just grow overgrown.
So I think we can have that conversation tomorrow night with the
And I don't
the
think that's why
Conservation
you
Commission
put the
should
4
be
million
part of
into
it.
that land, to let it just be an overgrown.
I think the problem is we have to let Conservation Commission do their thing tomorrow night.
Yes.
And as much as I think everybody back there should have the opportunity to come up and speak, they've made themselves heard, and I appreciate that, by the way. I read all of the emails that came through. But I'm always going to default, we have to follow the law. And that's, whether we like it or not, we have to follow the law. And if there's a process, we got to follow the process so that we don't unintentionally break something. I think it's unfortunate that this is on the agenda now, and we didn't hear anything, or there's nobody here from Conservation Commission, like, got a
Yes.
plan. It would have been nice to have a little bit more of that context, for me at least, from what Conservation was going to do, and then we could have heard from these folks to figure it out. But I think unfortunately, you know, we're all in agreement of the great work that you guys did. But right now, I think we're all hearing you, but we kind of need the other side of the equation. It's
Yeah,
like we're
but-
getting.
And Aaron.
And we can
Aaron-
circle back.
and
We
I'm-
can, so
Aaron-
you can circle
and
back
I'm-
with us.
Aaron, I'm all for doing the right thing. I don't want to do anything illegal
No, you
or any of that. The only reason it's here is Carl said he doesn't see common or a park-like situation, use for that property.
But we have to, we have to hear from them to see what they do want. So that's, or what their intention is. And I'm hoping that we'll get that clarity tomorrow. And then I'm more than happy to give the time, it's your board, but I'm more than happy to give the time to.
So
hear
what do I
everybody
do
out
for the
after that.
next 2 weeks?
Well, I think tomorrow night is a good start.
That's no problem.
And then if you would like
Take
to
the night off, that
reach
day
out,
off, yep.
See how, no, don't take the night off. Watch the meeting. Go
Yeah,
to the
no,
meeting.
yeah.
If you would like to reach out afterwards, I think we can see where we're at. And if you want to come back in front of this board and discuss it again, then that's your prerogative always. So.
I think the residents do want to know that information.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm just one resident.
So why don't we see how tomorrow night goes? And we are at your disposal as your elected officials, and you can reach out to us afterwards, and we can bring you back here for another discussion when we have a better idea of what the Conservation Commission has planned and how tomorrow night's meeting goes, and maybe you work something out tomorrow night, and it's
Well, not tomorrow night, but I mean,
Yeah.
we need to do as soon as possible. We need to, you're the owners of the property. I'll take your direction.
okay. We can
Thank you.
can
But
discuss
it's
it
under,
after
it's
tomorrow.
under the purview of Concom. And I think what she's asking you to do is collaborate with Concom tomorrow night in a public setting to try to bring a resolve to this and understand what their side is. And maybe you can voice your side a little bit more adamantly. But I mean, I think that's what we'd like to see. It's not the select board's property. It's the town of Chelmsford's property that is under the purview and under the oversight of Concom, the Conservation
But
Commission. So until we hear from them, we can't make any decisions. But we would ask that you collaborate, as you spoke so fondly of earlier, with them in a public setting, so that maybe you can find a resolve to this and understand where they're coming from, and maybe they can understand better from where you're coming from.
And we
So
ask
let
that
me
they
ask it.
collaborate back.
Let me ask the question. Coolest, is it preservation?
It's open space. It was
Open
acquired for
space.
open space purposes, just like Warren
Using
Pohl.
preservation money?
Community preservation funds, yes.
It doesn't, doesn't
That-
have to be voted on? at
So
town
folks,
meeting?
I think some of this stuff will probably be cleared up tomorrow night.
I
as
hope
well.
so.
But if you can reach out to me after tomorrow night if you'd like to
Yep,
discuss.
and I'm sure the residents will, because I'm sure you welcome that. It's not my opinion, I'm
always.
just one person.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Okay, so next up, our last report presentation, we have Finance Director John Souza regarding the 249 Wellman Avenue condominium foreclosure case. Hi, John.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Town Manager Cohen. Tonight I'd like to discuss the property located at 249 Wellman Ave, and I've provided a memo to the board just to give you some of the background information on this property. Legal counsel filed a foreclosure case back in 2023 at my request due to years of unpaid taxes on the property. A judgment in the foreclosure case is expected before the end of June. And as a result of changes made to state law that became effective last November, a municipality is now required to make a decision to sell or retain a property that's acquired by foreclosure within 14 days of the decision or the judgment being rendered by the court. And I just wanted to explain, this is a very short window of time because usually once a decision's made by the court, there's a time lag between the time that the decision's made and then the town is officially notified by the court. So because of that situation, legal counsels advise that the best practice in this situation is to bring this matter before the board in advance so that a timely decision can be made. Given that the property is a residential condominium and does not appear to have a municipal use, my recommendation would be for the board to direct me as tax title custodian to sell it. However, ultimately, the decision rests with the board, the select board. Following tonight's meeting, the owner of the property will be notified of the decision in writing, and that may prompt them to contact my office to pay the outstanding taxes. Legal counsel has prepared a motion for the board to use, and there's also a form to be signed by the board as well. Finally, I just wanted to mention that if you do decide to direct me to sell it this evening, the owner of the property still has the opportunity to come forward and pay the taxes without losing ownership of the property. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Does anyone have questions?
He just answered the question I had.
Okay, so then do we make a motion to authorize John to sell it? Can we do that now? Does that make
If you'd
sense?
like
what he's
to,
asking.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll take a motion.
Okay, I'll make a motion pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 60, subsection 64A, to direct the treasurer, tax title custodian to sell a property located at 249 Wellman Avenue, North Chelmsford, upon entry of a foreclosure judgment by the Massachusetts Land Court.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, Pat's
Thank
passing
you.
around. He's passing around the signature.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Okay, next we have a sign, an item regarding sign easements for electric vehicle charging stations.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. At last, 2 weeks ago at town meeting, the town meeting voted to authorize the granting of the easements to National Grid for the 5 locations in the community. As you know, as were presented, you recall one was Vinyl Square, one was in the center, one was at the library, and so forth. And so this evening, in order to advance those properties, we have the actual easement documents for your signature this evening. So the motion by the board would be to approve the easements for the identified areas as presented.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions, concerns? Okay, I'll take a motion.
Motion, let's see, how am I gonna do this? Motion to allow the town manager to execute the grants of easements necessary for the electrical distribution. Does that do it?
Yeah, the electric vehicle charging station for the board to approve, and then the town manager take any actions necessary to facilitate the recording of the easements.
Okay. Does that work?
So I'll make a motion that this board approves the grant of easements necessary for the charging stations and allow the town manager to take the actions necessary to execute such going forward.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes 5 in favor, 0 opposed. Thank you. Next up, we have signing the warrant for the June 23rd special town meeting.
Yeah, thank you, members of the board. As we discussed at your last meeting, there's a necessity to call a special town meeting primarily to deal with the roof at the South Row Elementary School. The MSBA, which is going to fund half of the eligible cost for this project, in order to meet the bid cycle to have the work performed by next summer, this cannot wait till fall town meeting, and the cost information and details were not available for this town meeting that we just finished 2 weeks ago. So that's the request for a special town meeting on June 23rd. Other items on the draft warrant that's before you this evening include funding, timely funding from the Community Preservation Fund for the perimeter survey of the 4 parcels known as the Coolest Farm. The third article, it would be a placeholder because we're still negotiating with the town's collective bargaining units, meaning the firefighters, library, and public safety dispatchers, in case that were to be approved. And then the fourth one is requirement under state law that town meeting has to approve regulations by the Board of Cemetery Commissioners for private family mausoleums at all public burial grounds in the town. I was going to ask you to sign this tonight, but I'm going to ask you to table the signing until next week, and the reason for that is our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, notified me after the publication of the packet last Friday that as she's generating more cost estimates for the elevators that town meeting has previously approved and funded for the McCarthy School, the high school, and the Westlands School, those cost numbers are coming in over estimate. So I've drafted an article to provide supplemental funding, and council's reviewing it, but I don't have it for you this evening.
So you don't want us to
So I
sign
don't
it?
need you to sign that this evening.
Okay.
But I will be back with the warrant a week from tonight at your next meeting. So you'll see it on Thursday. I've asked council to provide me with the legal review by Wednesday. So again, and again, it's the same issue. The elevators have to be done during the summer months. So again, it's an item that can't wait till October because we need to be bidding because the lead time for elevators is considerable. And there's no way we would have work done next summer if we're going to town meeting at the end of October and then it just doesn't work. So again, that's the explanation for the warrant. So again, you'll see that on your agenda, the draft agenda that will go to you tomorrow and
For next week?
For next week.
Okay.
So that's what that is.
So I have a question on Article 1.
Yes.
It says money to be expended under the direction of the school building committee. Shouldn't
Yeah.
that be the permanent building committee?
Well, it's MSBA, and so it's their language, and technically the permanent building committee is acting as the school building committee. So
all right.
yes.
Okay.
But that's their language requirements. They literally provide you with everything, including the language for the motions and everything else, including the warrant articles.
Okay, so we're good there?
Yes.
Okay, so item 10 on our agenda is to discuss our town council appointment. So here, these are for you guys to sign. So, our new town council appointment procedure that I think Pat wrote for us last year that you drafted for us. Did we just approve this?
Yes, we just proved it a
Last
few
year,
months
right?
ago,
Or
yeah.
a few months ago.
Yeah.
So it states the following is the timeline and process that'll be used when appointing town council. When the current town council appointment is due to expire, the chair will place an item on the agenda for the first select board meeting in May, at which the board will discuss whether the current town council should be retained without the need for interviews and/or presentations from additional municipal law firms. If the board decides to retain the same council firm, the chair will confirm that the incumbent firm wants to continue to serve the town. If the board decides to evaluate other firms, the chair will reach out to qualified firms, which may include the incumbent firm, who will be asked to provide documentation that will be included in the agenda packet for the second weekend meeting in May, and requests that a representative from that firm attend that meeting. At the first select board meeting in June, the board will vote on the appointment effective July 1st. The term of the appointment shall not be less than 1 year and not more than 3 years. So I guess tonight we just need to have a discussion about whether we want to reach out to any other firms or
Well,
consider.
I think to consider if we want to stay with who we have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thoughts?
I mean, I think KP Law has done a good job, as Paul mentioned at a recent meeting. The staff seems to be very comfortable with them and has used them quite a bit as necessary. I mean, they've not overused them. But I think we have, with KP Law, we have such a wide variety of expertise in that law firm that almost anything that comes up on the municipal side can be dealt with and dealt with effectively.
I concur.
Nice. Anything?
Yeah, my interactions have been pretty good, so.
Yeah, I've been happy with them. I don't have any concerns with staying with them for
Okay.
at least another year. So should we, let's see. So do we vote on it?
We could take a vote to retain the same council, yeah.
And do we have to confirm with them that
Correct,
they
yeah.
would like to?
Right. They might not want to, but I doubt that.
Just in case. It's only fair,
There you
right?
go.
Okay, so if you, now, do we ask them before we vote?
No, they can
No.
decline, but
Okay.
then they're not going to decline.
So it sounds like we're kind of, do we want to just take a vote right now?
Sure.
Yep, I'm good
So
with
that
it.
it's on the
Okay.
books and we don't have to, okay, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the town of Chelmsford retain town council as KP Law as discussed going forward. Do we need to do a time period now for 2 or 3 years, or
Well,
Yeah.
Paul?
it says,
Yeah, it says in the policy, yes, yeah.
it says in the policy we'll do that the first meeting in June.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
first we have to make sure they want to continue officially. And
So
then-
we're not
Okay.
voting to appoint them.
Correct.
We're just voting to reach out to them and
Okay.
and tell
attempt
them-
to
So the
retain their
motion then-
services for another period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so the motion is for the town of Chelmsford to maintain town council as KP Law going forward and to be determined in a future meeting for the time frame.
Sounds okay.
Second it.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik,
Yes.
Pat Maloney,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Aaron,
Yes.
and I'm an aye. The motion passes. Now, do I reach out to them? The policy says that I would reach out to them.
I mean, if you want, I can, 'cause
that-
I know Lauren Goldberg pretty well, if you'd like.
Is
I
Lauren
could-
Goldberg the primary? Is
Yeah.
that who you'd reach out to? Okay.
Managing partner.
Okay, we can talk about it after.
Yeah.
We'll reach out to them. Okay. Next up, we have Select Board and Town Manager FY25 goal, the Town Manager appointment process.
So when we did our goals last year, I offered to take a stab at writing this appointment process, and so this is the first draft. So for discussion. I mean, it's pretty vague because philosophically, I feel like whoever is sitting on the board at the time that this needs to happen should be instrumental in making most of the rules. I mean, this is just like I
What
said.
tab is that?
Say that again?
What tab is that on the?
Oh,
11.
Under 11 at the back. So, Pat, just maybe general questions, or a general question. So we're writing this now because it was part of the last select board's goals. How was it done before? So obviously this didn't exist before, so how was it done before?
the board at the time decided what they would do and how they would do it. I mean, this, like I said, and this just kind of gives some guidelines on, maybe, from searches that I've seen from other communities, some of the basic things that you want to cover, like having a focus group, our town charter does require that we have a screening committee. So there are some things that are required, but then there are some things that, we may or may not want to do.
Yeah, I think there's probably kind of tiny wordsmithing things that I didn't think warrant. I'd have to go back and just read it again, knowing a little bit of the context, but,
Well, since it is a new policy, we wouldn't approve it today.
Right.
We'd always carry it over to at least the next meeting, so.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah,
if-
and I like you said, that's fine. I
Yeah, so if
understand.
you have questions, I would ask them now, but otherwise we'll table it till the next meeting.
Okay, unless there are some edits that you'd like me to
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there's something that,
Or anything off the top of your head, yeah.
right, if there's something else that I come across where I'm like, okay, I'd change that or word that differently or strike that or add that, do we just send that back to you since you drafted it and then you'll present the new one? Like, how do we communicate?
If you send it just to me, yeah, we
Okay.
can do that. You can't send it to the whole board.
Right, I know, right.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure that, okay. No, I'm good. Otherwise, I think it's pretty solid.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Great. We'll look at a final draw. I guess this might be the final draft, but if you have any changes, we'll look at the final draft next week, and then we can just.
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Pat.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have town manager bid awards.
Yeah, I have 3 separate items. The first one is for the fire station known as project manager. As some of you aware, and also it's per the materials in the packet, there were 10 proposals received at the end of March to perform the owner's project manager for the fire station project. This followed the designer selection that the board approved for the Glante Architectural Studio. Of the 10, the Permanent Building Committee subcommittee interviewed 3 candidates. Based upon the completion of those interviews, they recommended unanimously Left Field as the owner's project manager for the project. That was presented to the Permanent Building Committee at their April 15th meeting. The Permanent Building Committee unanimously approved that recommendation and then sends that to you this evening. And the recommended award amount to Left Field is not to exceed $990,000. And again, we're familiar with Left Field because, as has been noted, they work for the town for the owner's project manager services for the high school kitchen project, and they're currently working for the town on the Parker School project. And as we know, when looking at that time, they have extensive work in this area, including a number of projects in Billerica, including the high school and some fire stations there, as well as the Tingsboro Middle School. So we're seeking your confirmation of the bid award for Fire Station 3 and 5, owner's project manager to Left Field, an amount not to exceed $990,000.
Hasn't town meeting already done that?
Town meeting appropriates it, but they had to procure it. Now you folks have to approve the bid award of the manager.
We take these individually.
Do we take them? Can we take them all at once?
Yeah, however you want to do it.
You can keep going. I think we can probably.
All right, you can prove.
Yeah,
you
we
can
can
prove the
take
bid
them all
awards
at
as
once.
presented. The next one is for the data collection services for real property or the assessor's office. Again, this was also followed from town meeting. John Souza, our finance director, put out the procurement process on this through the state bid list, combis, and so forth, goods and services. They received 2 proposals, one from Vision Governmental Solutions, the other from Municipal Finance Solutions. They evaluated the proposals, recommended Vision Governmental Solutions because theirs was deemed the higher quality and highly advantageous. And once they opened the price proposals, they were also the lower cost per parcel. Again, we're talking over 10,000 residential parcels and over 270 commercial and residential properties in the upcoming 2 fiscal years. As part of the town, a required cyclical evaluation of property. And so therefore, I'm seeking the board's confirmation to award to Vision Governmental Solutions for the total proposed price of $313,000, which includes $160,000 in phase 1 for the upcoming fiscal year, and then it'll be followed by $153,000 for phase 2 in FY27. And if you have no questions, I'll go to the DPW ones.
Anyone have any questions on that one?
Okay. DPW, it's the seasonal paving and road construction materials. First one being mill and overlay. 8 bids were received for this. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Sunshine Paving of North Chelmsford in the bid amount of $1,123,394.80, which fell within the project budget. The next one was Micro Surfacing for the upcoming construction season that we've just started. Their one bid was received from Seal Coating Inc. Out of Braintree, Mass. They have positive references. The town has previously worked with them, and therefore we're recommending the award to Micro Surfacing to Seal Coating for the bid amount price of $129,870.10. And then for the full depth paving reclamation, the estimated cost for this was $1.99 million. 5 bids were received. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Sunshine Paving of North Chelmsford at a price of $1,769,666.13. And then for the boiler replacement at McCarthy Middle School, again, sealed bids for this project. 7 bids were received. The lowest responsive and responsible bidder was Alanco Service Corporation out of Westboro, Mass, in the bid amount of $339,000, which falls under the $340,000 estimated cost for the project. And then finally, the Main Street Design bid award for the Main Street roadway and sidewalk improvements design. This is an estimated project cost of $150,000 to $200,000. 5 proposals were received, and the DPW recommends the approval to GPI as the recommended consultant, and an amount not to exceed $195,000 to GPI of Wilmington, Mass. So again, I seek your confirmation of these bid awards as presented.
So on that Main Street one, what parts, where in Main Street?
It's basically the roadway, particularly the section by Groton Road as you go up. But it's basically it's because you remember the whole idea was sidewalks and road improvements. We've done some trial programs and noted trial programs over there in the past. But the whole goal is for the reconstruction and safety improvements on Main Street.
Okay, yeah, because the other end of Main Street too.
It's already done. Yeah, we've already done that part.
Wait, so are they redesigning the existing sidewalks, or they're putting in sidewalks?
Putting in sidewalks, yeah.
Do they always do, but this is just for the design?
It's for the design.
Do they always do the design, or is it just
no,
they
it's
hit that
such an
area?
extensive roadway in terms of distance and area that, and we know that it's not just a simple mill and overlay, that we've got to go out there and do some serious work, including sidewalks.
Paul, how do we determine where to pave, where not to pave?
DPW makes those determinations. We have a 5-year roadway surfacing plan, which was based on an examination of all the town's existing paved roadway surfaces, and they're scored based on their condition, and then it's updated annually. The rating system isn't just what road is in the worst condition. It's based upon, in terms of the decision of what road to pave, what's the volume of traffic on the roadway? Is there a value of paving it, addressing it before it gets to full reclamation? And then there's the case where roads are at the point where it has to be full reclamation. And part of that has to do with the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic, and obviously around school areas and corridors and so forth. So what it doesn't mean is, and we have it on our website, it doesn't mean that the road that's in the worst condition gets paved, because if that were the case, you would basically be reconstructing every road in town, because every road would be falling to the ultimate state of disrepair. So it's that balancing act of maintaining. What you want to do is maintain your roads so they don't fall into a state of disrepair. At the same time, trying to address the backlog of those that are particularly tend to be cul-de-sacs and minor roads that get less traffic, but tend to get less attention. That's sort of how the decisions are made. Usually DPW comes in at the beginning of the calendar year for the upcoming construction season and provides the list of roadways. And then as issues arrive during the year, then they're considered as well. The other big equation is the level of funding that's coming from the state in terms of how much money we can put into the roads, because, the town puts money in from the capital budget. We'll put money in probably this fall from whatever the closeout of funds are from this budget, but also it's how much coming from the gas tax and the fair share tax that they're providing to communities. And as you know, that's being debated right now because the governor has proposed increasing the funding by 50% because it hasn't changed in 13 years. And we're waiting to see what the legislature does. Unfortunately, the later we get into the season, there's less we can do this season, but that's just the nature of the legislature. So we may not know that till July, but that's how it's made. Basically, Jeff, it's an art as well as a science.
Okay.
And so therefore,
the only reason I bring it up, I know you probably saw the email.
Yeah, we get
all
emails.
received,
Yeah.
And I've heard from multiple people in that neighborhood. So it took a ride over there, and it is a mess.
It's a mess. Yeah.
I mean, you've got a lot of the sewage caps that are raised. I mean, that's
And so again, they go out, and particularly when you had a winter like this winter, it creates more havoc than what you would expect in terms of what happens. And then so that way, that's how it's determined.
Okay, if nobody else has any questions, comments, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that the board approve the town manager's bid awards as presented.
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call vote? Pat Wojcik?
Yes.
Pat Maloney?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
And Aaron?
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The motion passes. Good luck, Paul.
Okay. The DPW, thank you.
Next, we have town manager reports.
Yeah, just a couple items on my report this evening. The first one, and probably most noteworthy, and again, goes back to the special town meeting, is we have submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority, the Southborough School roof replacement project schematic design. And that's required in order to move forward with this project. It's called the schematic design, but it's really not a full-blown schematic design that you would typically see. It's almost a pre-schematic design, meaning they haven't gone out and done the detailed work that's out there. Again, we need to comply and submit with the MSBA timeline, and the key part of this thing is the MSBA will not increase the funding level for a project. And so what happens in this case is the consultants are conservative, and they provide contingencies because of the unknown, because they'd rather come back to the town and say, you funded X, but we had Y left over, and isn't that great news, rather than come into a community saying, well, we thought the project was going to cost X, and the state's going to reimburse 52% of X, but now it's costing X plus Y, and the state's only going to reimburse you at 52% for X. And so that's what we're dealing with here on this project. So we've submitted it. It's $4.5 million, and so that will be submitted to town meeting next month. But I wanted the board to know that we've submitted this on behalf of the town to meet the MSBA schedule for this project. And again, the MSBA assigned in this case, they assigned the owner's project manager and the design firm for this work. And so that's why you see the signature for the owner's project manager on behalf of the town of Chelmsford, and so forth. So that's, the update on this project. And again, it's all in there for all the details you can see. And if you recall, and we don't belabor this tonight because you're going to have it at an upcoming meeting when you make their recommendations, but basically it's going back and pulling off the original roof and the roof on top of that, and then redesigning the solar and everything for that project.
The solar panels.
Yeah. So that's. Go ahead.
So I have a question.
Yep.
Attachment B, it lists a ballot question. Are we expected to
There's
have
no
a
ballot question, but again, that's
Okay.
MSBA standard format. As I said earlier, they provide you with the warrant article, the motion, and even the ballot question.
Okay.
But we're not putting a
Even though we
ballot
don't
question.
need it. Okay.
Yeah, and on the warrant, there will be, it won't be contingent on a ballot question. And we've made
Okay.
that clear, that's not happening, and nor do we have an election that we could do that
Right.
as well. So that's the issue with the submission of the schematic design. And again, there's a lot of pages there, the board and people want to see all the photos of the roof and all the cores and they've done and everything else. It's just been.
When you look at those photos, it really makes that
Schools-
dollar amount that it costs to remove the solar panels and put them on. It kind of makes sense now when you
Yeah.
see the photo of all of the solar panels.
And again, you're talking a building that was built in the 60s, so it's over 60 years old. The next item on my report is the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities approval of the local action units at 255 Princeton Street. The letter, as you can see, was received by the town on May 5th from the Undersecretary of Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities. That's the 6 affordable units. This is not the David Hedison elderly units at the site. Why this is timely, and we've been working on this, and you may recall you signed this back in February, the board at the time, is they're going to be seeking occupancy before the end of this month for the first phase, which are the townhouses and the building 3, one of the multifamily buildings, and then they're expecting completion of the other units in 2 more phases this fall. So we've submitted. This is the official notification from the state of the local action approval, which again the board submitted, and also with the Morose Avenue by the Board of Appeals, the town's working with town council and the Evan Belansky Community Development Director. The town asserts that we've achieved safe harbor at 10%. because the last inventory from in March was we were 9 units under, and these are 11 units that were approved by the Board of Appeals back over a month ago, and then by the board, these units back in February, and then that safe harbor was asserted last Thursday evening in this room for the Crosby Village project, and that's now moving forward to the appeals process by the applicant. So that's where we are on this project for 255 Princeton Street. The next item is another community longstanding project. This has to do with the reconstruction of the boat launch over at 200 Watton Street. And our fire chief, Gary Ryan, has sort of been the custodian and over managing this project, and it's been frustratingly lengthy, as I guess we sort of all anticipated. But at this point, the Department of Environmental Protection Waterways Regulation Division, which is the Department of Fish and Game, Office of Fishing and Boating Access, is receiving comments by May 26th on this license application to replace the existing boat ramp along the Merrimack River at 200 Watton Street. I know Chief Ryan has already submitted a letter of support. I'm not aware of any opposition, and all we're hearing as residents is frustration how long this has taken. And Representative Elliott has also been working with Chief Ryan and the community to try to push this project along. So again, this is just another stage where they're out at the formal advertising. I think the anticipation at this point is the construction is hopefully going to occur next summer of 2026. And then the next item on my report is the double poll report.
No,
I'm sorry, Executive Office of Local.
No, Aerosmith.
I'm sorry.
A cell phone tower.
Yeah,
Aerosmith.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There it is. It's out of order in the packet. I bring this to the board because in the last couple months, we've been receiving increased solicitations for wireless communication towers in town. This company, on behalf of Verizon, this was their letter date in February, and then it's been moving around since then. I mean, they came in with all kinds of parcels the town owns, most of which are conservation land that it isn't allowable, as well as school properties. And so you can see one was the high school property, which doesn't fly, and also there were conservation parcels. So we received a series of letters, and what I highlighted here is the only one that I know that may be technically viable, meaning it isn't restricted either by conservation land or school land, is 54 Richardson Road. I think the concerns obviously with 54 Richardson Road are numerous. We heard a presentation earlier this evening. It is in the, the town utilizes the property. There's a dog park there. We still store vehicles there. But I think the peculiar part of that property is the topography of that property, because the reason the town acquired additional land maybe 15 years ago is we were mining the sand out of the back of that property because the terrain of that. And so I guess it's technically viable to put a wireless communication tower there because they're asking for it. I don't know that it would be accepted by the community because you need a 2/3 vote of town meeting to approve it. But I don't think, once again, I don't think I have the authority to just throw it in the wastebasket and say we're not interested. I think I just have a duty to present it to you to say, hey, does the board interested and want me to pursue anything further in terms of where they'd want to be on the site, or just basically say, no, not going to happen. So again, I don't make those decisions unilaterally. As you know, we've been pursuing and will continue to pursue revenue alternatives. But I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. Again, I don't need an answer this evening.
I was under the impression they were getting away from the towers, going to more small units.
Did they just put one on the East Chelmsford? I know that they East Chelmsford
still
Water
going on
District.
water tanks. Yeah,
they wanted to put one on the East Chelmsford Water Street. I don't know if they approved it or not.
And there was this whole thing where they were going to be doing them in the roadways as well. But I just think they're overwhelmed with volume of phones because now everybody's got more. A lot of people have more than one, and I just think it's just moving so fast. In fact, they're upgrading the antennas on this building for the same purpose.
See, I was under
the next
impression
generation.
That's how they were going to move forward, was have antennas on certain buildings.
Yeah.
So,
Anyway, I just don't know if you want me to pursue this site or not.
And if that's what they're doing, are these going to become obsolete in like 5 years.
Well, they'd
and then
have
we're
to
just
put
gonna
they'd have
them
to put a
sitting
bond up. In other words, one of the requirements when you sign a lease with a wireless
They'll
company,
remove it.
they have to put a removal bond in. So that way, they just can't say, "Oh, well, we're bankrupt," and yes,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Hope you enjoy the tower we left behind. No, they have to put a performance bond up, so that prevents that kind of a situation.
Like digital. Remember when everybody got the TV?
Yeah. And then also you'd have to do
Stuck
a
with the
procurement
thing.
process. We just can't say, "Oh yeah, we're going to go with Aerosmith," but I just wanted the board to be aware that there's this interest. Yeah.
I don't see a reason to not pursue it. I mean, to see, like you say, where they want to put it and maybe do a balloon test or whatever to see how visible it would be in the neighborhood.
All right, well, I'll do that. I just don't want the phones ringing and saying, "What's the town manager doing?" or "What's the town doing?" So, okay.
Well, to Pat's point, I mean, I think it's, again, you're busy, so I want to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
But if there's a revenue opportunity, then I think it's our job to bring those to the town, and they can vote them down.
All right, I'll reach out to them, see if they want to do a balloon test. That'll show if they're serious. And
Is
then
that the first
see what
step
we
in
do.
those towers is
Generally,
put it up to
Yeah.
see what it would look like?
yeah, and then that gets all the attention.
Those are the ones that looked like a half-dead tree.
Yeah.
You know what?
No.
Not a fan
Sure.
of those.
No, me either.
Thanks, Paul.
All right. Yeah. And the next item I have is a double poll report. We have the same 47 double polls this month, which is the same as last month. During the course of the last month, meaning the month of April, 3 double polls were removed and three new double polls were added. Based on this report, and now that we're out of the what I call the winter weather season, I've reached out to National Grid and say, "Hey, look, there's 2 longstanding double polls that we've been chasing now that go back to 2015 and 2017. They provided me with dates for work. We'll begin on those in the next several weeks, provided there's no extreme weather conditions." And then I also reached out to Verizon and Comcast because they have a number of double polls that are in their what's called next to go, because how the double polls work is even though Verizon owns the poles and then ultimately removes the poles, the work starts at the top line, which is the electricity, and then it goes down the pole to ultimately Verizon being the lowest, which are the telephone lines. And then in between there are the town's fiber, if we have fiber. There's also cable, which is Comcast, is on the poles. And there's also third-party other private providers that the utilities put on those poles. That's what you see on the list. So again, we're going to move these along, and hopefully we'll get this list down to more manageable. And then we'll also look out in the community, as we talked about, is what poles are out there that are not on this list, because all this is saying is what's in their database. There's this feeling and understanding that there may be double poles that are either erroneously errored because there's human error to these, and then there's also some that may not be on the list. So that's where we go. So that's where we are on double polls at this time.
Is this a game of whack-a-mole?
Yeah, but we've brought this down considerably from where we
No,
were.
I know, it's-
Yeah.
I feel like at this point it is. We've
Yeah,
kind of
but
been
it's a
in a little
whack-a-mole,
bit.
yeah.
But I mean, you just said we got rid of 3 and.
Yeah.
up 3
But there
more.
were like 100 and
No,
I don't
no,
know
I
how many
agree.
last
Oh, yeah.
year. So we've gotten it way down, and now we're kind of plateauing a little bit. But yeah.
Yeah. A couple other minor things. As Bardry noted earlier this evening, when he met the Lieutenant Governor, he attended on behalf of the town the ceremony where Chelmsford was awarded the Climate Leader Community. And what's great about that is the town is now eligible to receive up to $150,000 to fund technical studies to design municipal clean energy projects, and up to $1 million via decarbonization accelerator grants. I think where this may end up ultimately may be in something like a new school project where you'd want to be able to do some clean energy, and again, you might be able to get some incentives that could help reduce the cost while hopefully reducing the long-term operating costs of the facility. So again, that's an achievement by the town in the climate leader community.
Who chases those grants? Would that be Rogers the committee?
Yeah, the committee, Christopher Haley, our sustainability manager, and so forth. And then the last one is we did receive formal notice from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Resilience and Sustainability Design Planning Assistant Grant Award in the amount of $50,000 since our last meeting. As you can see from the application, this was prepared a while ago, back in July, and I was at a Northern Middlesex Council of Governments meeting today, and other communities noted that finally they released the embargo and notification on these grant awards. So anyway, this was Evan Belansky, and again, this would help the town try to seek some sustainability efforts in the community. And then that concludes my report, and then the one appointment I have for the board's confirmation this evening is Linda Subsick to the CCA Advisory Board for a term ending June 30th, 2026.
Does anybody have anything about Linda? No, if not, I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion for the board to approve the town manager's appointment of Linda Subsick to the Chelmsford Center for the Arts as presented.
Take a second.
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote. Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Aaron.
Aye.
And I'm an aye. Welcome, Linda. Next up, we have some meeting minutes. So we have reorg meeting minutes from April 3rd. I don't know if everybody got a chance to review them. Does anybody have any edits already?
They look
that
okay to me.
No?
Yeah, I read them all.
Okay. I guess I'll take a motion to approve the minutes. I don't know if we can do we do them all together? Yeah. Pat, you can do the first three all together if you want, the 3 sets of minutes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 3rd, 2025, the meeting minutes from April 7th, 2025, and the meeting minutes of April 14th, 2025.
I'll second it.
A motion and a second. Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff.
Aye.
Aaron.
Yes.
And I'm an aye. The minutes are approved. And then I have here an announcement of determination of releasability of executive session minutes. So we have minutes for release from January 6, 2025, and minutes not for release from December 23rd, 2024. Did I do that correctly? Okay, great. So that's it for minutes. Next up, we have liaison reports and referrals. Pat, would you like to, do you have any liaison reports?
Sure. I just have a few congratulations to note. Chelmsford Police Department in the past couple of weeks has promoted 2 patrol officers to the rank of sergeant. Kenneth Meehan and Craig Mead are both now sergeants, and they also promoted a sergeant to lieutenant. That was Steve Fredericks. So congratulations to those 3 folks on their promotions. Last Saturday, I was at an Eagle Court of Honor for Connor Jackson, Chelmsford's newest Eagle Scout. So congratulations to Connor. And also congratulations to Ali Joshua Fatine. I know I really mangled that name. He was presented the Guardian Award from the Chelmsford Historic Society. You may know that he's the owner of Fishbones, and he also is almost complete as far as renovating the Oddfellows for the steakhouse that will be known as Prime 41. I believe it's Prime 41.
Yeah, Prime
right?
41, yep.
So congratulations to Ali. And during the presentation, somebody did ask him when the restaurant was going to open. He promised by September and maybe earlier. But
That's what we want to hear.
by September this year.
Prime 41. I still think it should be steak bones. Fish bones and steak bones. I don't know.
I'm sure he's
T-bone.
Yeah, T-bone, something like.
I'm sure he'll listen to your suggestion.
Yeah, no, probably not in his best interest. Okay. Pat Maloney, do you have anything?
I do have just a couple items. I'll be quick. We met today, members of the school building committee for the Parker School, Parker Middle School, Paul Cohen, Jay Lang, Dennis King, who is the chair of the school committee, and myself as chair of the school building committee,
And Christine
met
Clancy.
with Mass School Building Authority today at 2:00, and that was to put forth our nomination for owner's project manager, which oddly enough is Left Field, who we spoke about earlier. And they're on some of the other projects in town. So a subcommittee of the school building committee went through numerous proposals and selected Left Field to be the owner's project manager. The overall committee approved that recently. So today was the meeting to get the final approval from the Mass School Building Authority for us to hire Left Field LLC as our owner's project manager. All we did today in the 2:00 meeting was to present. We should hear back with a yay or nay either tomorrow or the following day, I would think, at the latest. Once we know that Left Field has been approved, contracts have already been submitted, and the town manager will execute that contract. And at that point, once we have the owner's project manager on board, we will then move forthright. Actually, by the end of the week, we will submit to the Mass School Building Authority for our request for services for the designer services, which is next. And so we're hopeful to get the final approval. It sounded in the meeting like it was a very positive meeting, so we do expect approval for Left Field to be approved. And that if that happens, then we will be off to the designer selection piece, which we would hope to have done by the end of the summer. And at that point, we can really get down to business. We have set a schedule for the school building committee to meet monthly. So you can keep your eyes out for that. Those meetings are televised, and you can follow our progress there. But I feel very positive that Left Field will be approved by Mass School Building Authority. So that's that one. And then recently an update on the Permanent Building Committee. Specifically, the North Fire Station is winding down now. Chief Ryan, Tim Powerley, the chair of the building committee, permanent building committee, and myself went up and walked the new siding on the North Fire Station. Everything looks good. We're waiting for a few more things to be completed. We'll take one more walkthrough, and then that job will be finished finally. And regarding the fire stations that were approved last year, which is Engine 3 and Engine 5, Westford Road and South Chelmsford. There's a kickoff meeting to happen with the OPM and the designer, so they have both the OPM and the designer on board. They're going to move to schematic design this summer with construction slated for next summer. So you'll start seeing things like wetlands flagging and schedules and surveys forthcoming from there. And as Paul mentioned earlier, the submission was made to the Mass School Building Authority under the Accelerated Repair Program for the partial roof replacement at Southborough School. So that is all submitted for, and we await final approval on that. And that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Jeff, you have anything?
Not really. We've got a parade meeting tomorrow night, and we'll be hitting the home stretch pretty soon.
Yay.
So, which would preclude me from going to the conservation meeting. So I'll watch it at a later date. And I'll reach out to Carl if I have any questions. So, and besides that, I just want to mention a dear friend of all of ours, Sam Chase, lost his brother this week. And on behalf of the board, I want to express our condolences.
Thank you.
All right. I got the opportunity to do the in-person via Zoom with the age-friendly committee. And as we all know, that senior center is pretty busy, and there's a lot of things going on there. I did pick up the newsletter in case anybody was interested in reading it. The two things I found most interesting out of the meeting, and that I talked with Deb and Fred about highlighting, were one, Chief Spence says there's going to now be a drug drop-off box up there, so another place in town, because everybody knows you shouldn't be throwing your meds down the toilet. So that's going in soon, or it's in soon, I forget the exact date. And then they have a strategic plan, and they're working to realign their strategic plan with the one that we most recently adopted, and Fred was on the committee with us, so he's very in tune to putting that together. And they're very busy and active, and as Deb, I'm sure, would be glad I said this, if you think you're not old enough to go to the senior center, you're young enough to go up there and volunteer, so feel free to come on up and join her. I did check in with Sam. There was nothing to report from the Board of Assessors. I did go to the Board of Health meeting, their once-a-month meeting. Just like the planning board, they're going to put a spot on there, and if I show up or I have anything that we want to report to the board to them, they'll have that as available comment to us. They do a lot of kind of general business, incoming and outgoing correspondence. They too are looking at the strategic plan and called that out and had it on their agenda. And then Pat read the Donna's newsletter that goes out each month. Let's not forget the Fall Festival that they'll be hosting. And then she sent me a note today when I followed up, just a reminder that it is Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's keep that in mind. Council on Aging, that meeting is coming up soon. Bob's the chair of that meeting, and Bob just sent me some documentation on an acoustic study. I'm sure you've heard from him before that they're still making progress towards that. It's a very lengthy report if anybody wants me to forward it on to them. The Finance Committee, obviously this is not their time of year, and I've had a couple of conversations kind of here and there with Crystal Valley of the Planning Board, and the last communication we had, Paul, is I'd like to get together with you, myself, and Evan to talk about their portion of the strategic plan, and just kind of make sure that we're all on the same page, march into the same thing. I think that's an important meeting, so we're going to try to put that together. And then, when I can't attend a planning board meeting, I'll obviously watch it the next day. But there's a lot going on with those guys. Obviously, they're still working on their CB Light with the Kate's Corner activities, and again, I think the biggest thing for us is going to be the strategic plan. And then finally, I didn't get to attend the Vinyl Square meeting, but they had their reorg at the last time. I did go through and watch it. So Joe Turney is now the vice chair, and Virginia is now the chair of that committee, and Laura Lynn remained as the clerk. I know they have a published meeting agenda, or in theory an agenda, that timing on the website, but they did go through and they picked calendar dates all the way from June 9th to March 5th. There's no meetings in May and October of that committee. Director Leslie Kimball from the library did a really nice update on McKay. There's a lot going on there. She did say, for those that like the summer concert series, that's coming out soon. They also discussed the boat ramp, which we won't do tonight. There was a lot of discussion around the MassDOT 25% design. Now, I know that affects Vinyl Square and North Chelmsford, but it really does affect all of us. So just keep an eye out as more information comes out on that. And then there was a lot of discussion just in general around Vinyl Square parking and some concerns with that. And then there is a meeting on June 5th at the police department. I believe that's still on the docket for the Zoning Board of Appeals. Again, that's for the Ledge Road situation on June 5th. And that is all I have.
Okay. Thank you. And I have nothing. So if nobody has anything else, I think we're done. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Pat Wojcik, Pat Maloney.
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye, go
Aaron?
Schultz. Yes.
And I'm an aye, and we're adjourned.